What would you have as a Super Bowl snack?
So I'm gonna probably have yogurt.
He's a psycho.
The guy!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Ugaranik is sparing with you guys. Big show ahead. So ICE is withdrawing further, which is good news. They're negotiating to see if we can get the mask offs and badges. We've got more of that story a little bit later in the program. Israel, of course, is attacking wildly everywhere. Lebanon, West Bank, here inside America. We want more. It's never enough. And obviously they're trying to start a war with Iran because they're Israel. They do nonstop wars. And of course, they demand that we all pay for it. So a lot more of that, unfortunately. I wish Israel wasn't in the news, but they won't stop starting wars. And they won't stop demanding that we pay for it and bullying us to no end. So we've got more of that for you guys in today's show. So Anna, good to see you. What do we have first?
Well, it does appear as though a decision has already been made in regard to US intervention and war in Iran. And I want to show you exactly what I'm referring to. Let's get into it.
Israel's expansionist project requires that neighboring countries be weakened militarily, technologically, economically, and socially, so that the Israeli regime permanently enjoys the upper hand. Under this project, Israel is free to expand its military arsenal without limits, including weapons of mass destruction that remain outside any inspection regime.
That was Iran's foreign minister speaking at the Al Jazeera forum in regard to Israel's goals against Iran as it continues to goad the United States to invade and engage in military intervention on its behalf. And it's important to know about the Greater Israel Project because thanks to Israel, the United States is in fact preparing for a sustained war against Iran. You can see that as far as our Navy goes, we have a third of our Navy deployed in the region at this point. And that's gonna put our soldiers at risk, again, on behalf of a war that would be fought for Israel. Now, with that in mind, let's just keep in mind that US soldiers could lose their lives. There's a lot at stake here, and I'm not the only one saying that. In fact, here is warmonger Senator Lindsey Graham saying something very similar.
Could our soldiers be hit in the region? Absolutely, they could. Can Iran respond if we have an all-out attack? Absolutely, they can.
Now, before I get into more details on this, Cenk, I'm curious what your 2 cents are.
Yeah, so I want to talk about what Israel's worried about there and what we're worried about and how exposed our troops are a little bit later in this story. And I also want to tell you why Israel's demands and hence our demands, since we don't really run our own government, are impossible for Iran to follow through on. So that's why this war seems inevitable. But let's give you all the facts and then come back and talk about those 2 things.
Exactly. So right now, the United States and Iran are expected to hold the second round of nuclear talks in Geneva. This is supposed to take place on Tuesday this week. Now, at the heart of this battle is Israel, which is demanding that the United States engage in war with Iran on its behalf. Now, why? Now, what they really want, what the Israelis really want, is regime change in Iran. That is their #1 goal. And what they do is use these various, facade issues, I like to call it. They like to shroud this potential war in these faux concerns about Iran's nuclear capability. It has none, especially at this moment, after the US helped Israel in bombing Iran's nuclear sites. But what Israel is doing is now it has kind of engaged in more poison pills when it comes to these peace negotiations, because Israel is saying that no longer enriching uranium, no longer working on a nuclear program. That's not enough. We want Iran to give up its ballistic missiles, and that Trump should not, under any circumstance, make a deal with Iran unless they do give up their ballistic missiles. In fact, this past weekend, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel was speaking at an Israeli event, and he doubled down on that demand of the Trump administration. Take a look.
All enriched material has to leave Iran. The second is that there shall be no enrichment capability, not stopping the enrichment process, but dismantle the equipment and the infrastructure that allows you to enrich in the first place. And the third is to deal also with the questions of ballistic missiles. Remember Ronald Reagan's dictum vis-a-vis the Soviet Union? Trust but verify, distrust, and always verify. So there has to be real inspections, substantive inspections.
Now, the group that we should be distrustful toward, of course, are the Israelis, because they have led us into various wars that have not worked out for the United States. In fact, it's been at the detriment of the United States. And certainly a war with Iran would fall under that category. Now, just quickly going back to what Netanyahu said about Iran's ballistic missiles, Iran has been very clear. They are unwilling to do away with their ballistic missiles. Now, why is that? Because it's literally their only line of defense against Israel. Without ballistic missiles, they have no way of defending themselves should Israel or the United States, at the behest of Israel, carry out strikes or attack Iran. So they're saying, no, this is not something that we're willing to negotiate. We are willing to have a conversation about enriching uranium or a nuclear deal that would allow for more oversight in Iran, but we're not giving away our ballistic missiles. In the meantime, the Trump administration continues to build up military assets in the region in preparation for a sustained war. Because if the US refuses to strike Iran over ballistic missiles, Israel has said and made very clear, well, we're going to go at it alone, which we all know is not really going to be the outcome of the situation. If Israel, much like the 12-day war, attacks Iran, there is no doubt that the United States is going to get dragged into a hot war with Iran. Now, here's what's concerning, and CBS News reported this. I want to note that this statement by Trump dates back to December 29th of last year. Little suspicious that CBS is bringing it back up in the context of what's happening with Iran today, but this is what they reported. Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a Mar-a-Lago during a meeting at Mar-a-Lago in December that the president would support Israeli strikes on Iran's ballistic missile program if a deal between Washington and Tehran could not be reached. Now, the Quincy Institute is arguing that this is really meant to kind of goad the Trump administration into attacking Iran. I don't know how true that happens to be. I know I don't really trust the reporting from CBS with Barry Weiss at the helm. But nonetheless, even though this is being reported by CBS, Trump says different things at any given moment. So I don't really put a lot of faith or trust behind him in doing the right thing, especially when Israel is involved, because as we know, Trump has carried out pretty much everything Israel has wanted. Now, I also want to talk a little bit, Cenk, about Iran's military capability later on. But before we get to that, curious what you think about Trump's unpredictability and whether you think we're going to enter this sustained war with Iran, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, so I think that the problem is that I'm not sure how we can get to peace. So the reason I say that is because And there's some reporting here that gives a sliver of hope, but so what Israel's saying now is not, hey, let's get rid of their nukes, which they didn't have any nuclear weapons. Let's get rid of their nuclear weapons facilities, which now we have bombed and gotten rid of. They're saying they want no uranium capacity at all. Well, okay, I don't really know what that means, but it's like everyone else is allowed to have it for nuclear energy, but Iran's not allowed to have it for anything at all. Okay, all right, so maybe we could work with that, but they've often resisted that. Then they say they have to get rid of all of their ballistic missiles. But that no one would agree to that. That's absurd. You only make that demand if you think that you want war and you want to blame them for it. I mean, would we give up all of our missiles for what? Why would we ever do that? What an insane thing to ask any country to do, right? But and of course, never help the Palestinians. Why? The Israelis want the entire Middle East to be defenseless, and then they're going to attack them over and over again. Later in the program, we're going to show you how they've bombed Lebanon 1,000 times since this ceasefire. They're in Syria, they're in Lebanon, they're beginning to annex the West Bank. No, they're an imperial empire and they want the entire country to be, region to be defenseless. So they stuffed all these poison pills into this negotiation so the Iranians can't possibly say yes, right? So the sliver of hope that I read, Anna, was that, that maybe Trump is backing away from the demands on ballistic missiles and some of the outrageous demands. Now, what is the difference between our position and the Israeli position? Well, that has everything to do with what kind of leverage the Israelis have on Trump. Because the American position is not related to American interests at all. If you take out Israel first, but you put in every Republican and every Democrat and every independent, and you poll without Israel first, who wants to go to war with Iran? Who do you think a war with Iran will help your life or not help your life? I mean, we're going to be at a near zero for a number of Americans who want to go to war with Iran. No one wants it on either side. The only people that want it are the Israelis. So this constant back and forth is, Trump knows that it's going to make him super unpopular. He ran on anti-war, he's a pro-war president. The Epstein files have totally destroyed his credibility. If he now just starts a massive land war in the Middle East, like he said he wouldn't do, he's going to go down to the teens in approval. Everyone in the country is going to despise him, and maybe his own voters most of all, because of the betrayal that he did. On the other hand, apparently the Israelis have, went to the end of the rainbow and got a pot of gold on Trump blackmail or bribes or whatever they're using to influence him. Because no Democratic or Republican president would agree to the demands of Israel that we start a war in Iran on their behalf. Iran has absolutely nothing to do with us. What are they going to do? Because before, Anna, their excuse was, oh, the nukes. What if somehow they eventually built nukes and they somehow got them to America? But now that's over, they can't do that. Their ballistic missiles couldn't possibly reach us. So what's our interest in this? None, other than the fact that our government serves Israel.
None. In fact, the hostility that exists in this relationship between the United States and Iran is fully the fault of Israel. In fact, we wouldn't have issues with Iran if it weren't for Israel. One of the bargaining chips that Iran is, trying to use to kind of make a peace deal more enticing for Trump is they're like, you know what, we'll open up possible economic opportunities for the United States. We've got a lot of oil, and maybe there's some economic deals to be made here as part of a diplomatic effort, as part of a diplomatic peace deal that will lead to a little more stability in the region. The thing is, as long as our country, and more importantly, our government, seems to be captured or beholden to the Israeli government, then our politicians, including the president of the United States, is going to continue carrying out policies that don't serve the American people. It serves Israel, certainly. Doesn't serve us, it's actually at the detriment of the American people. So I want to kind of pivot over to a second half of this story. I'll reset for it because I want to talk about, I think, the continued underestimation of war with Iran and what it would mean for the United States and our soldiers. So one of the claims that's often made by war hawks is that, it's not that big of a deal to invade Iran. We'll invade Iran, and right now is the best time to do it because it has been weakened as a result of the 12-day war. Iran's regime has further been weakened as a result of the protests that took place against the regime recently. It's an argument that you'll hear made over and over again. In fact, one of the biggest war hawks and individuals who tends to cheerlead a war with Iran is Senator Lindsey Graham, and here he is making that point.
The Iranian Ayatollah and his murderous regime are at their weakest point since 1979. Their economy is in shambles, their military has been degraded, there are people in the streets, Iranian people in the streets demanding an end to oppression. All these forces are coming together. We must meet the moment.
But in reality, going to war with Iran could potentially spark World War III. And I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic, because there has already been some indication that both Russia and China would back Iran in a hot war with the United States and Israel. Now, let's talk a little bit about what we've learned in recent days. So apparently China gifted a scale model of their J-20 stealth fighter to Iran's Air Force commander, Brigadier General Hamid Vahidi. And it was a symbolic gesture, essentially signaling to the West that China not only would back Iran, they see this potential war as a security threat for them. So there's the China angle, but we should also keep in mind that Russia is very likely going to back Iran as well. And so whether we like it or not, we are already living in a multipolar world. And when it comes to Russia and China, we're talking about countries that have impressive military capabilities. And if they are willing to arm Iran, fighting Iran isn't going to be as easy as Lindsey Graham would have you believe. And I want to go to one more video here, because you're about to hear from a British diplomat and the director of the Beirut-based Conflicts Forum. His name is Alistair Crook. And he was on one of my favorite shows regarding foreign policy to kind of discuss the military capabilities that Iran now has as a result of China's help. So take a quick look at this.
The Chinese have given already to Iran their long-range radar systems. I think it's a YLC-8B radars. And these can detect stealth planes at a distance of 700 kilometers. And as you know, that excludes all F-35s and for either by Israel or America. This is rather like what the Pakistanis had, and it's called Link 17, which is a complete network from radar to command missile control centers of a data system and the ability to communicate in this way. And it is, so they would be able, if you like, to create for them from Chinese satellite structures a whole battlescape, which can be fed directly, real time, into the missile centers of Iran.
On top of that, there's also an issue regarding whether or not some of the Muslim or Arab majority countries in the region would assist the United States. For instance, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE have all publicly said that they would not allow their airspace to be used for any strikes on Iran or Iranian strikes on any other country. So you have to take the full context of this potential war into consideration. I'm not really sure Trump is getting sober advice from the people who surround him, especially when you think of someone like Marco Rubio, for instance, who led Trump into believing that there are negotiations happening with Cuba right now. Cuba actually came out and said, no, that's not true at all. I don't think that Trump is being advised properly, and it's a scary situation all around. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, of course he's not advised properly. Almost everyone around him works for Israel. Marco Rubio has gotten millions and millions and millions of dollars from the Israeli lobby, and so is almost everybody inside the White House. So our government is compromised. So let's talk about a couple of factors here. So China and Russia that Anna mentioned, you know what they'd love to do to us? They'd love to turn Iran into our Ukraine. So Biden dragged out the Ukraine war because it was depleting the Russian forces and the Russian economy and was hurting Russia in 18 different ways to be bogged down in Ukraine. And China and Russia are, licking their chops, thinking, oh, please go into Iran so we could totally have you get stuck in that quagmire. We'll sell Iran all the weapons because you guys are in the wrong. You started the war. There's no qualms there at all. You're the aggressive imperial empire Israel is, and America's backing it, that is attacking its defenseless, innocent enemies. So of course we'll finance that war for Iran, and it'll help destroy the American economy. They'll be thrilled if we do that. Then you go to Jordan, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Now those are normally puppet governments that Israel controls about 90%, and they'll do almost anything that Israel asks them to do. But even they have drawn the line here. Why? Because they're like, what? You attack Iran, we're gonna have a giant uncontrollable war in the Middle East. Everyone is going to hate Israel even more, which just seems nearly impossible now, but 10 times more, 20 times more. And then the Jordanian people, the Saudi people, etc., are going to start to get agitated at their puppet governments that continue to bow their heads to Israel and let them run amok. So that's gonna create a problem for those ruling royalties in the area. That's why they're like, no, don't start another war, for God's sake. We have oppressed our own people. We've kept them down. We arrest them if they criticize Israel, etc. But if you do this, all of our countries are gonna explode. So, and now Trump, I mean, he just doesn't care about anything about where's my bribe, where's the blackmail. He just, the idea that he would care about the average American is laughable. And everyone around him is even worse. They're all completely and utterly bought. And of course, don't get me wrong, Trump's taking the most amount of money from the Israeli lobby, over $300 million from one family alone. So why are we bringing a second aircraft carrier into the region? For two reasons. One, we're now worried about Iran's capabilities because of the weapons they've bought that you just saw about. And the Iranians seem a lot more confident. And before, they said to us several times, we are not really going to counterattack. We're gonna do a show attack. But even when they did that with Israel, a couple of the missiles got through and hit Tel Aviv. And that has panicked the Israelis. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't want war. They always want war, right? So, but what they're doing, that they asked America is bring a second aircraft carrier, because the job of the second aircraft carrier is to provide defense for Israel when Iran starts launching those weapons. Now, our soldiers don't have Iron Dome in the region. Israel does. So our soldiers are sitting ducks. And every news report is talking about, yes, the Americans will probably take heavy casualties if they attack Iran. Again, we have no interest in attacking Iran. As America, none, zero. If you hear someone telling you that it's in American interest to attack Iran, they work for Israel, and they're probably very literally paid by Israel to lie to you in media and in politics. And I challenge anyone to find an American interest in attacking Iran, especially when they have no nuclear program at all, okay? So, I mean, to the point where if we were out of this mess and Israel attacked Iran, I don't know who I'm rooting for. They're both dictatorial governments, but Iran is a lot more peaceful than Israel. Israel attacks almost all of their neighbors. They take land, Iran hasn't taken land in, well, maybe ever. What Israel has taken Golan Heights, 53% of Gaza. They started a plan to annex the West Bank right now. They're in Western Syria. They're occupying southern Lebanon. Even though the ceasefire says they should leave, they won't leave. So, Netanyahu gave a speech where he said about the Iranians, you should distrust, always verify. I mean, nothing applies to Israel better than that. They never abide by a ceasefire. They're constant liars. And then they come in here with crocodile tears about how they're the victims. And then they take $350 billion off of us, last count. And then they go, oh yeah, you owe us more, America. It's your fault, and start this war for us. And so now here we are, and we're gonna waste enormous American treasure, probably tons of American lives, to make the Israelis happy, to fight their war for them. This war is if it starts, which is very likely, is going to be an epic disaster. It is going to be 100% Israel's fault. Every American soldier lost will be on the hands of the Israelis. And I want you to remember that now, because after the war starts, the media will help both the American politicians bought by Israel and the Israeli politicians pretend that Israel is the victims and we're the victims. And oh no, the terrible Iranians, I can't believe they defended themselves. They should have surrendered and groveled at the feet of Netanyahu. And because they didn't, it is all their fault. And we need to go deeper into war and deeper into war and deeper into debt and lose even more American lives, all on behalf of Israel. Here's how much we should help Israel. Zero, nothing at all. Netanyahu in that same speech said, I want money for 10 more years from America. By the way, he also bragged about how Israel has the third most robust economy in the world. Of course they do, because we finance it.
Yeah, you're right. And then he also started, subtly threatening the US by saying, we're getting closer and closer with India. We might not need the United States at all. To which I say, please make that happen.
Yes.
Please make that happen. Yeah. Anyway,
Indians, you deal with them.
Seriously. Anyway, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to stay on the topic of foreign policy because the Munich Security Conference happened last week, I should say. And Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said something that really upset Israel defenders. We'll tell you what that was and more when we come back.
All right, guys, so let's start with our members at TYT.com. Mongoose Dragon says, and then they will further cut our VA benefits, MFers. Of course they will. We'll have run out of money. We gave it all to Israel. So yeah, you go die for them, but benefits for you afterwards? No, hell no. Are you Israeli? If you're Israeli, maybe. But if you're American, no way. Pseudo Dragon says, you get to peace by launching a regime change war in Israel. So that's not gonna happen, nor would I root for it. But you're not incorrect in saying that there is one regime that's starting all the wars in the Middle East, and it's the Israeli regime. So if we want peace in the Middle East, there's an easy answer. There should be a different regime in Israel that wants to make peace, but they don't. And by the way, they won't. The Israeli people are not on our side. They're also warmongers, and I'm not gonna make excuses with them. They keep re-electing Netanyahu over and over again. The war, what they did to Gaza and the obliteration of Gaza, the terrible genocide is deeply popular in Israel. They want America to go to war against Iran. They're incredibly entitled. And so, and honestly, we're never gonna get to peace until there's serious damage inside Israel, because they don't really view the non-Israeli lives as that important. So, but if they lose Israeli lives, oh my God, that would be the most important thing in the world. And then they might wake up, and I hope it never comes to that. But I mean, how many wars are you gonna start before you find out? Spider-Man Dragon says, so when Israel demands land from Saudi Arabia for Greater Israel, what will we do? Oh, by that time they'll have neutered Saudi Arabia and on and on. But they'll get us into so much trouble before they get to Saudi Arabia that it's not worth discussing. But if they want, I mean, if we allow them and they continue with their plan, they will take nearly the entire Middle East. The Greater Israel map is gigantic, and they have it in their cabinet saying this is the amount of land we're going to steal from the Muslims. And so, of course, they do anti-Muslim propaganda in America to get everybody to hate Muslims. So we will finance them stealing Muslim land all over the Middle East. That's not any way hyperbolic exaggeration. Look up the map of Greater Israel. Look to see if it's really in their cabinet and their Knesset. Look to see if their cabinet members have said they want Greater Israel. They have, including Netanyahu. They plan to steal all of that land because they're a fascist empire in the Middle East. Okay, let's go to Super Chat. Male Poor says, when I saw Cenk on I've Had It podcast, say you're the cavalry, I felt your emotion. Been a member for 10 years, you're so right. Never had so many others echoing the message you've been yelling. I hope you're seeing it pay off finally. Well, thank you for saying that. I see some of it, I don't see others, but it's okay. Whoever's on board, guys, got to get the money out of politics. It isn't just Israel. We don't run our own government at all. Big Pharma owns it, defense contractors own it, oil companies own it. Everyone but the American people. And our politicians are the most corrupt, disgusting scumbags in the whole country. They're the very bottom of the barrel. They'll do anything for money and fame and power. They disgust me. Jacqueline Anchando writes in on the YouTube member section, wow, sounds like Lindsey really cares about our soldiers. He doesn't care at all. You're right. Haunted Dragon says, South Carolina, please vote out Lindsey Graham. He has done nothing for his constituents. Mark Francis says, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, none of this would be happening, which is a sad. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Laura Sorrells. Thank you so much for joining up on YouTube. She hit the join button below. Look at these beautiful people. CD Norse Dog Dad and Happy Warrior gifted a membership, and Melody Loves Music gifted 5. I can't appreciate you guys enough. Our members are amazing. We try to help you guys out by picking out good sponsors that actually help your lives. I eat from Cook Unity. It's much cheaper than eating out. It's very convenient. You could put it in the oven. I mean, I just throw it in the microwave. You could do both. And so they've got award-winning chefs. It's delicious. I've tried it. So there's no reason not to do it. Go to cookunity.com/TYT or enter code TYT before checkout to now get 50% off your first order. That's 50% off your first order by using the code TYT or going to cookunity.com/TYT. All right, Anna, what's next?
Well, Cenk, these days, nothing triggers Israel firsters more than hearing the truth. And AOC gave them a healthy dose of that at the Munich Security Conference.
I think that personally, that the idea of completely unconditional aid, no matter what one does not make sense. I think it enabled a genocide in Gaza. And I think that we have thousands of women and children dead that was completely avoidable.
That was Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaking on a panel at the Munich Security Conference. And since she called a genocide exactly what it is, a genocide, well, that drew the ire of individuals who provide cover for Israel's genocide. So before we get to more details on this story, including those who are losing their minds over what AOC had to say there, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm only gonna say 2 things. One, that was infinitely better than her answer on Taiwan. We'll get back to that in a second. Anna was apparently involved in a controversy over it today. Anna, I don't know if you saw that, but there's some articles about that. And then, but on this issue, as Anna's reading the names of the people who are outraged by AOC's perfectly normal answer, understand that every single one of them works for Israel and is here to lie to you and betray you for another country. So go ahead, Anna.
Well, I mean, look, when it comes to Rupert Murdoch, who loves to provide cover for Israel and defend everything that that foreign country wants to do, you can see the Murdoch influence in his publication. So let's start with the New York Post, which shared this headline: AOC accuses Israel of genocide while in Germany, the home of the Holocaust. Shocking ignorance. Okay. I don't know if anyone has caught on to this yet, but Germany is so ashamed of its role in the Holocaust that it enables Israel at every turn, okay? It's not Nazi Germany, okay? The days of Nazi Germany are long gone, it's over. So who gives a damn if AOC tells the truth about what Israel is engaging in Gaza, while at the Munich Security Conference in Germany? Now, that being said, let's go to this Fox News headline.
Can I jump in for 1 second on that? Yeah, I think that you should say it in Germany even more. So we said never again, and we said never again after what the Germans did during the Holocaust. I hope every decent human being is horrified by what happened in the Holocaust. And now, if you're going to condemn another genocide, Germany's the perfect place to do it. Does Israel think they get a free pass on genocides?
They do, they definitely do.
Okay.
Absolutely. Another headline, this one's from Fox News. AOC accuses Israel of genocide in Germany, where Holocaust was launched, sparking outrage. Look, the only people who are outraged are those you would expect to be outraged. Again, individuals who are totally fine with the mass slaughter of innocents in Gaza, people who are totally okay with Israel annexing land in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan. These are people who prioritize Israel and its interests over what is best for humanity, number one, and what's best for the American people. Now, in reality, Israel is and has been carrying out a genocide against the Palestinian people. In fact, here is Israeli-British historian Avi Shleim explaining why.
Under Netanyahu's leadership, Israel has also committed the crime of all crimes, genocide. Genocide is not just a legal concept, but a fundamentally moral issue. It is the denial of the right to exist of a whole group of people. Israel's national identity is inextricably linked with the Holocaust. But Israel is no longer the victim, if it has ever been. Whereas in the Second World War, the Jews were the defenseless victims of Nazi Germany, today it's the Palestinians who are the defenseless victims of the Jewish state.
Obviously, it's incredibly powerful to hear that from an Israeli, someone who is worried about human rights for everyone. But on top of that, let's not forget the several human rights, humanitarian, and legal organizations that have also determined what has gone down in Gaza as a genocide. That includes the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention, Genocide Watch, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Doctors Without Borders, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, various UN special committees and commissions. That's why Israel hates the UN and wants to dismantle it. And of course, the Israeli organization B'Tselem, which also believes that their own country has carried out genocide in Gaza and said as much last summer when they put out a report on it. In fact, despite the so-called ceasefire in Gaza, Israel keeps slaughtering Palestinians. In fact, they just killed 12 more Palestinians in the Gaza Strip on Sunday alone. Gaza Civil Defense said that one Israeli strike hit a tent sheltering displaced Palestinians in Jabalia, northern Gaza, killing at least 5 people. Another person was killed by Israeli army gunfire in Bet Lahia. And a separate strike hit Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, killing 5. Israel does what it typically does after these deadly strikes take place. They claim that they were targeting Hamas militants. Yes, I'm sure that there were plenty of Hamas militants in the tent encampment that Palestinian civilians were sheltering in. Of course, Israel failed to provide a shred of evidence to back up their claims, because why would they? They don't even need to. The US is gonna defend them no matter what. The Israeli military has also begun launching deadly attacks across Gaza, killing at least 601 Palestinians and wounding 1,607 since the ceasefire deal was signed. And that's according to the latest numbers from Gaza's health ministry, which account for bodies brought to hospitals and morgues. And for anyone who wants to throw cold water on that number, because it's being reported by Gaza's health ministry, let me just remind you that the IDF has confirmed the Palestinian death toll that has been reported by Gaza's health ministry. Oh yeah, also 8,000 bodies remain trapped under the rubble in Gaza. Cenk, back to you.
Yeah, so first let's talk about our lying media. I'm gonna give you a quote from Fox News, which is gives you a sense of how much deception there is in our media. They said in the middle of this AOC story, military experts and genocide researchers have debunked the allegation that Israel carried out a genocide against Palestinians during its self-defense war against Hamas terrorist organization. Now, that's not at all true. Overwhelming majority of genocide scholars say that it is a genocide. In fact, every non-Israeli related scholar says that it's a genocide, 86% of them overall. But our media, corporate media, usually lies in its framing. So when Hamas kills Israelis, they'll say the murdering terrorist slaughtered the innocent. When Israel does 70 times worse, they'll say, oh, collateral damage, they were hiding behind human shields, etc. But they don't normally just outright lie. Fox does. Just that what I just read to you is a complete fabrication. It's the opposite of what was true. So that's why sometimes this is an ironic point. I don't blame right-wing voters as much, because that's the slop they read, and they have no idea that Fox News is lying to them. They think that Israel was I don't even know if they know that there has been a 58-year occupation. They think the Palestinians just hate Jews so much for no reason at all, and every once in a while those vicious animals attack poor little victim Israel, because that's what Rupert Murdoch owned publications say to them 24/7. New York Post, Fox News, and all over the world. I don't know why Murdoch is obsessed with helping Israel and starting its wars. Maybe they have blackmail from 50 years ago on him. I don't know. But Murdoch always wants war, always lies, and always supports Israel. So now when you turn to what's the reality, by the way, because of, actually before I get to today, one other thing that Anna mentioned I want to build on, the United Nations. Every piece of propaganda you have heard against the United Nations in America actually comes from Israel. Why? As soon as the United Nations said, yes, Israel, you exist, they're like, okay, good. We don't need that stupid body anymore. Because then the United Nations said, well, you should be decent to the Palestinians. They're like, no. If you're gonna tell us to be decent and follow international law, then we hate the United Nations and we wanna make sure that American people hate the United Nations. We don't want the world working together. We wanna destroy worldwide cooperation so that the only country that anyone listens to is Israel. So they have been doing this kind of propaganda in our lifetimes for about 50 years straight. Oh, the Muslims are the worst. United Nations is the worst. International law is bad. You should keep starting wars. They're good for you. A global war on terror, which is a global war on Israel's neighbors. So now, finally, to what they're doing today. So Anna mentioned that they're not abiding by the ceasefire in Gaza at all, an average of at least 5 people killed per day. What kind of ceasefire is this? Because the Israelis are giant liars and they don't ever do what they said they would do. And I'm not saying that like in some sort of like generic way, no. Over the last 2 years, every single ceasefire has been violated by Israel over and over and over again, repeatedly every day. Here, I'll give you an example from Lebanon. In 2024, they do a peace deal. And since then, that ceasefire, Hezbollah has fired 0 rockets into Israel. How many has Israel fired back? 2, 4? That would already be a violation and terrible. Over 1,000 rockets into Lebanon, because ceasefire to Israel means you stop fighting and I keep murdering you. And they were supposed to withdraw from southern Lebanon. They're not gonna withdraw from southern Lebanon. They're never going to withdraw. They never withdraw from anywhere because this has nothing to do with self-defense. More land acquisition. And finally, they have begun to annex the West Bank as we speak. Why? Because they were always going to take the West Bank and Gaza Strip. They've said it 1,000,000 times. We want greater Israel. That is Judea and Samaria. That is ours. We're going to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians who we view to be subhuman, and we're going to take that land for ourselves. And America, you have to pay for it. Otherwise, every American will be called an anti-Semite. So that's Israel's plan. And you're gonna see going forward that now that I've decoded it for you, you will see that that fits into that pattern 100%.
All right, before we go to break, you need to tell me about the controversy because I'm too busy like researching and producing the show that I'm not Googling myself. Like, what's going on? I'm like super curious about it.
So I love what AOC said about the genocide there. So great credit to her. At the same conference, she was asked about should we defend Taiwan if China attacks? And she gave a terrible answer. And Anna and Brian Tyler Cohen were on Piers Morgan this morning. That has come out, and there's been some articles written about how Anna said that AOC gave a bad answer, which she did. And so Anna, I love that you do honesty no matter what. And so we can agree with AOC on Gaza and Israel, and we could disagree with her on Taiwan. Please, like, what for me, Anna, what Democratic or left-leaning hosts and politicians have to do is please stop lying on behalf of Democrats. It doesn't actually help Democrats. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help anyone. Let's get great candidates, as you said on the show, Anna.
Right. I mean, look, when you provide cover for the weaknesses of any Democrat, whether it be AOC, a presidential candidate, doesn't matter. What you're doing is enabling mediocrity in certain areas where they need to strengthen their arguments and their knowledge, to be quite frank, because I think foreign policy is a weak spot for AOC. And so to not at least have a canned answer in regard to Taiwan as you are attending the Munich Security Conference, I think is a disastrous oversight, and she should be more prepared. That's the argument that I was making. And when we provide cover for politicians on our side, for lack of a better word, we only make them weaker. So we need to stop doing that. Okay, and that, by the way, goes for the right as well, obviously.
And I'll say one last quick thing. Look, I would have an answer for that immediately. Why? Because I already know what I think is the right thing to do and not and not to do. The reason I think AOC paused there for so long was she was calculating who is going to be mad at me for saying this or this or this. Stop calculating. Give us what you actually think. And then if we like it, we'll vote for you. And if we don't, we won't. But if you just keep calculating like those corporate robots, then you provide no alternative. And by the way, AOC, like she gets so upset and Bernie gets so upset if you ever criticize them. We're trying to help you. Like it doesn't help you at all to go, let me see, what does mainstream media want? What does the progressive base want? What does DSA want? No, just give us what you got. And you know what? Yeah. Trust yourself. Maybe we'll like it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Anyway, we do have to take a break. When we come back, we've got the latest on the Epstein files and more. Don't miss it.
All right, so let's go to YouTube members. Seamus P writes in, by the way, are we seriously not getting the rest of the Epstein files? Yep. Now, Netanyahu came to town, all of a sudden we're not getting the rest of the files. We have more on that a little bit later in the story, in the show, I should say. D. Mitchell says, so basically only Israel wants to go to war, but because Cheeto's Cheeto, we may have a mutiny. I mean, I hope the American people do a mutiny on both of these parties. Vote out almost all the incumbents. Unless you know your incumbent is not taking Israeli money or giving money to Israel, you should vote them all out because they're raising their hands. I'm not working for you. By the way, if they're selling out to Israel, you think they're not going to sell out to Big Pharma? You think they're not going to sell out to the defense contractors? No, if they're selling out to Israel, they'll sell out to anyone and everyone. Broken Wing Dragon says on Twitch, hey Cenk and Anna, happy Monday. I met Richard Ojeda running in North Carolina 9 Saturday night at Dropkick Murphy's concert Saturday night in Raleigh. I told him I've seen him so many times on TYT. We took a picture together, all thanks to the great work you all do at TYT. Well, you're wonderful for saying that. Hey guys, support Richard Ojeda, great Rebellion PAC candidate in North Carolina 9. OJEDA, Ojeda. You could find his website, obviously, and donate if you can, because they're not taking corporate PAC money or Israeli money. Microgram says 36 months of Bezos bucks. We appreciate you, brother. So Bezos bucks is if you already have Amazon Prime, membership on Twitch is free for you. It takes about 5 seconds. But it really helps us because we get the money even though it doesn't cost you anything because you already paid for Amazon Prime. So that's tyt.com/prime to figure out how to do that. tyt.com/prime. All right, now we go to members on tyt.com. Spider-Man Dragon says, oh no, I already covered that one. Tube Sock Dragon says, my mom's an old church lady and she's on all these evangelical mailing lists. She's not been well, she's okay, but I've been handling her mail. Today I took incredible pleasure in calling the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews and removing her name from the mailing list. She hasn't given them money in years, thanks to me, but the fact that they still send her propaganda bothers me. Yeah, look, a lot of the evangelical leaders in America are sellouts and they literally get paid by Israel to lie to their congregations and tell them, oh, the Bible says you have to support Netanyahu. Really? Netanyahu's in the Bible? You have to support Israel, the current government of Israel, that's in the Bible? Yeah, it is. Shut up and give all your money to Israel and all your votes. Salt of the Union says, look at AOC actually saying something about the genocide. She took a while to get there, but good. Whenever anybody says the right thing, and it took courage to say it in Germany, I love that. So credit where credit is due. Little Mac McChee says, I hear you, Cenk, and have some sympathy, but at this point, I think most Fox viewers deep down do know Fox News is lies and propaganda, but it's lies and propaganda they want to hear, and so they intentionally don't seek other sources. Brother, I hear you on that, but at the same time, a lot of my establishment friends, and I'm sorry I keep throwing them under the bus, but listen to mainstream media because they want to hear that everything's okay, you don't need big change, and then after Trump, it'll all go back to normal. So am I gonna yell at them and say they're evil? No, they're getting misled by corporate media, and that's why a lot of them think, oh, Israel's our special ally. I mean, it's even the most educated people in the country can be brainwashed. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. I keep forgetting this on Friday and today. Happy anniversary! Today is kind of our 24th anniversary. It was actually on Saturday. So we started on Sirius Satellite Radio back on February 14th of 2002. We're the original talk show there. And now we're at 32 billion lifetime views on all platforms and 29 million total subscribers. And we appreciate every one of you that made that possible, because if we didn't have our members, we never would have made it out. We wouldn't have made it out in year 6, I think we would have been over. So we love you guys. Anna, what's next?
Well, we got to give you the latest on the Epstein file release debacle. Here it is.
Donald Trump told us that even though he had dinner with these kinds of people in New York City and West Palm Beach, that he would be transparent. But he's not. He's still in with the Epstein class. This is the Epstein administration, and they're attacking me for trying to get these files released.
Congressman Thomas Massie continued to go hard against the Trump administration over the weekend in this whole Epstein debacle. Before I give you more, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I want to talk about why they're doing this right now, as opposed to them saying, oh, we're gonna release the second set of files earlier. They changed their mind. Why did they change their mind? I think we have an excellent answer for that. We also are gonna show you conservatives who are no longer being silent when Trump does whatever Israel wants. Not just Massie, but others as well. Anna, give us those facts.
Well, when it comes to Massie, he was specifically responding to a question about President Donald Trump's pretty vicious campaign against him over the fact that Massie has been one of the more vociferous members of Congress in pressuring the Trump administration to release the Epstein files. Now, in response to that, Trump has supported Massie's primary opponent. He has repeatedly attacked the fact that Thomas Massie got remarried. Like, does Trump not remember the fact that he cheated on his wives, cheated on Melania while she was pregnant with an adult film actress? Like what are we talking about here? But anyway, Massie has definitely drawn the ire of Trump because he wants transparency for the American people when it comes to a pedophile ring that was able to operate with impunity for the most part. Meanwhile, Trump's Department of Justice has announced that they will not release any more Epstein files. Okay, so in a poor effort to explain why these files are either heavily redacted or why the Trump administration is withholding files from the public, Trump's Department of Justice cited work product privilege, which means that opposing counsel can't look at each other's legal materials. Sounds like a bunch of BS to me. Attorney-client privilege, which shields an attorney and client communications from discovery, and also deliberate product privilege, which allows the government to withhold information about how its executive agencies reach decisions. So they're throwing everything they can at the wall. Now let's watch Massie explain why he thinks all of these excuses from the Trump administration happen to be bogus.
They're citing deliberative process privilege in order not to release some of the documents. The problem with that is the bill that Ro Khanna and I wrote says that they must release internal memos and notes and emails about their decisions on whether to prosecute or not prosecute, whether to investigate or not investigate. It's important they follow that, because then we could find why they didn't prosecute Leslie Wexner. What was the decision tree there? And also why in 2008 they gave Jeffrey Epstein such a light sentence. And finally, I know the DOJ wants to say they're done with this document production. The problem is they've taken down documents before we were able to go over to the DOJ and look at the unredacted versions. They took down some of the most significant documents, 2 of them involving Virginia Giuffre's case and other things. The picture of Epstein at in a room where it's got CIA written on the boxes. That's been taken down. We want to be able to look at all these files. They can't keep those documents down after they've already produced them.
Now, Massey and anyone who wants transparency in regard to the Epstein files happen to be very upset because, we were led to believe that we at least received half of the millions of files that the DOJ has on Epstein. But it turns out that an investigation that was carried out by Channel 4 indicates the opposite has happened. We haven't even gotten half of the files or documents that are available in regard to Epstein. So let's take a quick look at how Channel 4 in the UK conducted an investigation and what they found in regard to the percentage of files that have been released to the American public.
From the earliest stages, investigators were talking about Epstein's data totaling many, many times what has so far been released. In June 2020, one wrote, "We expect the data to be somewhere around 20 to 40 terabytes," noting that the total capacity of the devices was up to 50 terabytes. Then as recently as last year, long after the investigations into Epstein and his associates had ended, the figures quoted remained massive. We're looking at a total of approximately 14.6 terabytes of archived data, said another email. To put that in context, it is almost 15,000 gigabytes. But now, a year on from that, the total data released, claimed to be some 300 gigabytes, accounts for just 2% of the total Epstein data that officials were discussing just last year.
Thus, the cover-up by the Trump administration continues. And in regard to the DOJ's excuses for not releasing the remainder of the files, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, another Republican, not buying what the DOJ is selling. Here's what she wrote on X. "I want to be abundantly clear that the DOJ memo released tonight, citing work product privilege, will not save the DOJ from releasing all the Epstein files. I'm not an attorney, and even I know this won't hold up in a court of law. Regarding deliberative process privilege, it would not cover factual information which is missing from the files. If they can give the names, then they can give them in unredacted files. The list is an admission that they can remove those redactions. And where are all the videos? If he had as many cameras as has been reported, there would be far more than 2,000 videos. Trust me on this, I know, because I've worked with an extensive number of victims in voyeurism cases." And she says, "To be honest, it's hard to find a legitimate reason not to expose every word in the Epstein files except for and unless you are prosecuting someone. That isn't happening. DOJ will lose in court if it comes to that." Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene had her own views on this as well. Before we get to that, Cenk, I want to give you an opportunity to comment.
Yeah, so there's two things that are inescapable in this case. As Nancy Mace said, there are no videos. So we know that there were video cameras in all the rooms. So the government's gonna tell us that there was video cameras, but out of the goodness of his heart, Jeffrey Epstein didn't tape anyone? No, that's the most preposterous thing that anybody's ever heard. So that means, without a shadow of a doubt, the US government is still lying, still protecting the predators, and you have every right to ask why. Why on God's green earth would the US government say, "Oh yeah, go ahead and rape American children, and don't worry, I'll back you for decades. And by the way, I know you're gonna rape someone else next year, and many other people the year after, and I'm gonna let you keep doing that." The second thing that's inescapable is there's been no prosecutions. So Epstein got a slap on the wrist on purpose. Alex Acosta saying that the intelligence agencies made him do it at the time in Florida. Ghislaine Maxwell is in the least security prison in the country, and she pretty much runs that prison. But none of the other clients, Les Wexner, who's labeled a co-conspirator by the FBI, Leon Black, that is accused of a vicious rape, none of them have been prosecuted. It doesn't look like there's ever gonna be any prosecution. Why wouldn't we prosecute people? Why wouldn't we at least investigate to see if we should prosecute people that we have excellent evidence have done terrible things? No, that means the US government is compromised. They're in on it, there's no question about it. There's only a handful of politicians now that are willing to say it or fight back. And if you don't see a politician fighting back against this, that means they're also compromised. So that sounds like heavy language, but it's indisputable. Who says, oh yeah, you want to rape American girls? No big deal, no big deal. Oh, we'll protect you. Not only will we not prosecute you, we'll hide the fact that you're doing it and we'll protect you. Now, why did they say that they were going to release another 3 million files, but now they say they're not? Not complicated. Benjamin Netanyahu came to town. He had a private conversation with Donald Trump. He was here from February 10th to 13th. And on the night of the 13th, they put out a statement, Pam Bondi did, going, yeah, we're all good. Yep, all the files have been released, we're done with it. Now, if you remember, what got him in trouble before was Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice putting out a statement on July 8th saying there are no files, there are no other clients, nothing bad ever happened, right? Guess who was in town at the time? Oh, Benjamin Netanyahu. And who had a private conversation with Donald Trump the night before on July 7th? Benjamin Netanyahu. So every time Netanyahu comes to town, he leaves and the American government goes, Israel didn't do anything wrong. Epstein didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing, there's no clients. Forget that they're all connected to Israel. Forget that Israel got cyber weapons because of a deal that Epstein made, and Epstein gave money to the IDF, and Epstein gives money to all these Zionist groups inside America, on and on and on. And he has spies, Israeli spies, stay over. Every deal he's made is made on behalf of Israel. But no, don't talk about that. That's it, there are no more files. Yeah, we know what happened. It's Israel, and our entire media is covering up, and almost our entire government is covering it up.
Well, while I'm sure the conversation didn't really hinge on the Israel angle to Epstein, Jillian Michaels recently interviewed former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene about why Trump seems to be engaged in a cover-up. And here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say about it.
One day, I get a phone call from the president in September, and he is so mad at me. And he's yelling at me, and he's angry at me, and the fact he's like, you're supporting Rand Paul Jr., and he's chewing me out for signing my name on Thomas Massey's discharge petition to release the Epstein files. And I'm trying to tell him, Mr. President, they say you did nothing wrong. Right. This needs to come out. Right. And so we're having this argument, and he tells me on this phone call, he's like, Marjorie, my friends will get hurt.
That's it. That's it. I mean, that is it. Obviously, that's it. Because they're all in here. Imagine the phone calls. It's everyone. It's every single person is on this freaking list. They're all there. Every billionaire, heads of state, Larry Summers, Peter Thiel, they're all in there.
They're all in there. There seems to be a thread though, and Jillian doesn't like to follow that thread. But nonetheless, I think what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say there was pretty interesting and important to know about. You know, whether or not you think that Trump is implicated in the Epstein files, and honestly, I think that he's acting as though he's got something to hide for his own self-interest. In the very least, based on what he told Marjorie Taylor Greene, he's worried about his friends getting hurt. I wouldn't care about my friends getting hurt if I knew my friends were engaging in activities with a well-known serial pedophile. But nonetheless, Cenk, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, so if you think it's a coincidence that every time Netanyahu comes, we come out and go, there are no Epstein files. Okay, maybe. And then, by the way, here's another coincidence. After Trump released these Epstein files, Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro were livid. And all of a sudden, the first Jewish president, we love Donald Trump. They're like, how dare there's something wrong with Trump? And you know, with the tariffs, and there's a lot of problems with Trump, right? Now, Netanyahu, well, maybe same thing. Anyway, Netanyahu comes, and then Trump's team goes, oh yeah, there are no more files. We didn't mean 3 million more files. We meant nothing, right? Now they're back to, attaboy, Donald Trump, way to go. Okay, you see that? Now make sure you're a good boy and attack Iran, okay? So look, we don't know why they have such a lock on Trump. Yeah, he got 337 million from the Adelsons already, but Trump's the guy who loves to screw over his debtors. I think that's why Netanyahu has to keep coming back and reminding him Now remember, it's not just the bribes our lobby gave you. We also have this stuff over you. And whatever they have over him, given what we already know about Trump, oh my God, it must be thermonuclear. And by the way, guys, if you think, oh, well, that sounds all conspiratorial. No, you could look up everything we're saying. And the Israelis knew that Bill Clinton had been with Monica Lewinsky before any of us here in America did. And they basically blackmailed Clinton with Lewinsky too. And they said, you better support what we're doing, otherwise people might find out about Monica Lewinsky. So
this was during the Oslo Accords. Yes, this was during the Oslo Accords. Mossad had been tapping Bill Clinton's phone. And so again, you're right. They knew the dirt on Monica Lewinsky and their lascivious relationship before anyone in the US did.
Yeah, because Israel's not our ally. Israel is a country that bribes our politicians and blackmails them until they send over not the politicians' money, but our money. And they've sent over $300 billion and they say it's not enough and we owe Israel more. And we owe Israel no investigations of what Epstein and his friends did. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, when we come back from the break for hour 2, we'll move off of foreign policy and geopolitical issues and talk a little bit about what's happening here in the United States domestically, because there is a partial government shutdown taking place as we speak. We'll tell you what it's all about when we come back.
They knew and they let it happen.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this?
The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And Phil and host beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, you won't believe the meeting that I just had.
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, Jerry, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago. When I realized that I was gonna have to put makeup on the show, I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. You guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. This I did. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial. How to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw. All hands. Pick up. A couple streaks. This is the guy way of putting on makeup. We got dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. You know, say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
Charlie, don't serve!
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and also Josh CBR8. Josh, thanks for joining. We appreciate it. The bigger this community gets, the more chance we have to bring honest news to you guys. I'm gonna read one comment from a super chat that was just sent in by Box. I can't imagine the government would compile all this evidence and not prosecute all the cases that came out of it already. It makes no sense. Box, here's how it makes sense. Local law enforcement sends in a tip. FBI investigates it. It goes into the files. FBI goes to prosecute. CIA goes, no, leave them alone. That's Mossad. We let them do whatever they want inside America. And again, if you think that's an exaggeration, we arrested dozens of Israeli spies after 9/11, and then we let them go. They're allowed to spy on us. It's insane. All right, Anna.
Well, I wanted to give you an update on immigration and deportation efforts by the Trump administration. So without further ado, let's get to the details.
President Trump told reporters that he's talking with Democrats and that, quote, I know what they want, I know what they can live with, unquote. Are you willing to accept anything less than the White House agreeing to all 10 of your demands to rein in ICE and fire Secretary Noem, or is it all or nothing?
Jake, these are common sense proposals. They're supported by the American people. Why won't Republicans go for them? They don't give any good answers. Well, it's something that every police department does across the country, but ICE is rogue, out of control.
Well, a partial government shutdown began Saturday after Democrats and Donald Trump failed to reach a deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security through September. Now, Democrats are demanding a slew of, I believe, very reasonable changes to immigration enforcement, but Republicans refuse to budge. And as a result, a funding bill for DHS has yet to pass in Congress. And we'll hear what Border Czar Tom Homan has to say about all of this shortly. But before we do, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, after you give us the facts, I want to show folks what the underlying problem is, because it's important that you know it. And then I want to talk about what should the Democrats do in this situation. But tell us what's going on, Anna.
Well, as you guys can all imagine, right now, Democrats in general don't have much leverage during this second Trump term, where Republicans still have a slim majority of both the House and the Senate. But nonetheless, these government funding bills really show you the very narrow areas in which Democrats do have some leverage. And in the Senate, you still need 60 votes in order to pass legislation, including government funding bills. And so Democrats are trying to use what little power they have to get concessions about immigration enforcement in the wake of the Renee Good and Alex Preddy fatal shootings. Now, they've laid out some pretty specific demands that they want the Trump team to maybe consider. And honestly, I don't really understand why this is so difficult. So for instance, they want to require immigration agents, both Border Patrol and ICE, to obtain judicial warrants to make arrests inside people's homes. Right now, they're relying on something known as administrative warrants, and those are warrants that they can write to themselves. A judge does not grant administrative warrants. You'd have to provide some indication that there's probable cause for a judge to sign off on a warrant. And when it comes to entering people's private homes, It is shocking to me that there isn't more outrage among those on the right who are worried about government tyranny. When it comes to your home, that's sacred, okay? Government officials, government agents entering your home without the appropriate warrant should be alarming to everyone. Democrats also want to mandate that these federal agents show visible identification, that they are prohibited from wearing masks while they're carrying out immigration enforcement. And they're also pushing for stricter use of force policy and want an end to roving patrols of ICE agents. Now, Republicans have largely objected to these demands, and their offers up until this point have been dismissed by Chuck Schumer. So Democrats rejected the White House's latest offer, which was made on Thursday, with Schumer labeling it not serious, plain and simple. And during an interview on Face the Nation, Tom Homan actually conceded that, he doesn't like immigration agents wearing masks, but argued it was necessary for their safety as heavily armed federal agents. Take a look.
As far as the mask, look, I don't like the masks either, but because threats against ICE officers, are up over 1,500%. Actual assaults and threats are up over 8,000%. These men and women have to protect themselves. As far as identifying themselves, they all have placards identifying themselves as ICE, ERO, HSI, DEA, FBI. So they all have placards on them. So I'll let the White House and members of Congress, fight that out. But I think some of the asks are just, I think they're unreasonable because there is no racial profiling. There is identifying marks. But masks, why don't they talk about maybe passing legislation to make it illegal to dox agents or something like that? But the masks right now are for officer safety reasons.
Now, we wanted to fact check the claim by DHS that threats against ICE officers are up by 8,000%. Unclear where he got that statistic from because we couldn't find it anywhere. But nonetheless, Senator Markwayne Mullin, a Republican lawmaker, of course, said that he could potentially get on board with requiring immigration agents or immigration officers, I should say, to wear body cameras and go through better training. But much like Border Czar Tom Homan, he dismissed their demands or the demands that federal officers remove their masks. I don't want to go to that video, but he did say that on camera. And then you have Democratic leader Chuck Schumer saying the excuses from Homan and Markwayne Mullin are complete and utter BS. One more video, this one featuring Chuck Schumer, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
Just look at every police department across the country. They don't walk around in masks. They don't walk around unidentified. Every police department is identified. In New York City, you see the name right on the breastplate, and the police are fine with that. So that makes no sense what they're saying. And all we're asking is that they follow what police departments do across the country. ICE is rogue.
Now, since there is a partial government shutdown, I should note that the shutdown impacts DHS in particular. However, due to the massive cash infusion that Congress has granted to ICE, ICE is able to continue operating even amid this partial government shutdown. The agencies that are impacted by this include the TSA, Transportation Security Administration, FEMA, US Coast Guard, the Secret Service, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Customs and Border Protection. But in reality, again, ICE and CBP will largely be unaffected because they were granted $75 billion as part of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. But before I give you more details, very curious what you think about all of this, Cenk, because of course, the Republicans are going to use the partial government shutdown to apply pressure to Democrats because their argument is, well, what about FEMA? You don't want to fund FEMA? You guys are bad guys for doing this. But at the same time, I do think it's important to rein in federal agents as they're roving our streets and causing chaos. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think I have a good plan that can get us out of this, which I'll get to in a sec. But so why do we even have this issue? What's the underlying problem here? Well, so because the Republicans have the Senate, they have the House, they have the White House. So what do they need the Democrats for? Well, it's because we have the filibuster rule. So you need 60 senators to get this passed. Okay, now I don't like that. I think a majority should be able to rule, and I'm principled on that, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. But hey, they didn't change it, so in this case, they need the Democratic votes. So it is what it is today, and obviously we follow the rules of today. The Republicans are constantly talking about like, it's an outrage that Democrats want anything. Why? Why should they vote for your bills without getting anything in return if you need their votes? What an absurd entitlement complex. I demand that you do everything we tell you and that you vote for us. No, I'm in the other party. And I hate your proposals, especially about ICE. Why would I vote for you? I demand it. Okay, demand it all you like, but that's not how things work, okay? So now, in terms of what's the deal that can get done, well, first of all, the jury's in on this. The American people hate it, and it's not like the Republicans don't know it. It's not like Tom Homan is leading a retreat out of Minneapolis because he wants to. No, they're retreating because they've seen the polling on it, and independents hate it. And you can't win the elections without independents, let alone the Democrats, let alone 25% of Republicans who don't like it. So they're in a world of trouble here. So yes, obviously no mass, bring badges back, make badges great again. And of course you need real warrants in America, that's not negotiable. And all the things that Anna listed. In terms of, can you give anything back to the Republicans? Yeah, I think that in the sanctuary cities, there's a good reasons for a lot of their rules in the sanctuary cities. It's so you protect crime victims, etc. But if there is an undocumented immigrant who has committed a crime, they should work with federal law enforcement in handing them over. And if they make that deal, well, that's actually super popular. Both sides of that deal are super popular with the American people. I know it's crazy, but maybe we do what the voters want.
I could not agree with you more. And in fact, one of the things that, look, there are conflicting reports, and I have no doubt that there are still instances of federal agents roughhousing Americans as they demonstrate and protest in Minneapolis and Minnesota. However, I think that, the Tom Homan effect has been to try to find a way to get state and local government to work with the federal government in, abiding by these so-called retainers or detainers to detain individuals who are here illegally. They've been convicted of other crimes, and the Trump administration would like to deport them as soon as they serve their sentence. It seems like deals have been reached in that context, and that's really, really good. That is a good sign, and that led to Homan announcing that there is a drawdown of federal agents in the state of Minnesota. So look, the only way we're gonna reach a place of stability and maybe some calm is if you have two sides who are willing to negotiate in good faith. But right now, in terms of what we're seeing in the federal government, it doesn't really seem like Republican lawmakers are willing to budge at all. And the unwillingness to work out a deal, work out compromise is exactly the problem with our government right now, where we never have any solutions, where we become more and more polarized. It is your job as a lawmaker, regardless of which side of the political aisle you fall on, to make deals. And that means, yes, you have to make concessions here and there. I don't even think these asks from the Democrats are unreasonable. These are reasonable asks that are meant to protect the rights of Americans, okay? So I don't want federal agents entering people's homes without the appropriate warrants, and everyone should be in agreement on that. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back, I wanna give you an update on the economy and Trump's polling not looking so good. We'll be right back.
All right, so let's go to Super Chat. Make It Make Sense says, love you guys. Have you watched the recent 60-minute episode addressing AI and humanoid robotics? This is an underreported story, and companies like Boston Dynamics and Anduril are going to change our lives within 5 years. So I haven't seen that particular report, brother, but I am super duper worried about AI. I think we are massively underestimating AI, and I think it's going to create a catastrophe inside the US, let alone the world. So buckle up and brace for impact. I mean, anyways, but hey, yeah, let's waste all of our time and energy and money on Israel when there's this iceberg we're about to hit, and we're gonna need every resource to make sure we could be all right. Box writes in, thank you, Anna, for not running cover for AOC on Piers today. You're absolutely right about the mediocrity. This is the time to bring these issues to light, not sweep it under the rug or ignore it. CDN Norse Dog Died says, happy anniversary, TYT. Been watching since Bernie and convinced my niece to watch the show too. I gift her an annual membership since 2019. You're amazing, brother. And thank you so much for all of the membership gifts and all the other things that you do. I love this audience. Michael Cotavelli writes in, some good news. Brooklyn Navy Yard boots Israeli drone supplier. The board of the Navy Yard is a public asset, serves at the pleasure of the mayor of New York City. I love that, Michael. Thanks for letting us know that. I didn't know that. So there's lots of acts of resistance throughout the world. The Italians started shutting down their ports for Israeli companies. They were like, no, we're sick of you guys killing all these Palestinians. We're not gonna do it anymore. And so there was like a little bit of a protest there. All these things keep popping up, and our press doesn't get much into it, of course, because they might not be able to present Israel's most precious victims in the world. Night of Mirage Odyssey writes in, I'm reading this mainly blind. Israel, led by apartheid demon, has officially influenced US foreign policy with an anti-Islam focus. It's clear Trump aligns closely with this approach from a regime linked to high civilian casualties, over 71,000 acknowledged by their army. Iran is now positioned as a target for warmongers like Trump and Lindsey Graham, who oppose Muslim interests to initiate conflict. Meanwhile, Israel pursues expansion in what's left of Palestine and into Lebanon. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, economically stronger than Israel, may regret watching passively until potential invasion threats arise, hopefully not too late. Well, yeah, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE's policy is basically like, when they came for the Palestinians, I did nothing because I wasn't a Palestinian. When they came for the Lebanese, I did nothing. When they came for the Syrians, I did nothing. When they came for the Persians, I did nothing. Oh my God, I can't believe they showed up in the UAE. Yeah, they're gonna show up there. They're already there. They have all the cyber intelligence for the morons of the UAE. Let Israel run their cybersecurity, which means Israel owns the UAE. They have every piece of data, every intelligence, probably on everyone inside the UAE. So go ahead, yeah. Dana Albrecht writes in on the YouTube member section, Epstein had a painting of George W. Bush sitting on the floor of the Oval Office, flying a paper airplane into two tall Jenga towers and grinning like an idiot. It's disturbing. I have seen that is literally true. Epstein used to be over the top. He'd have a map of Israel in his house. He had like tortured girls as art. And that's Israel going, yeah. I mean, that's Epstein going, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Anna's got more news.
Well, we got to talk about the state of the Trump administration, his approval ratings, and more importantly, the state of the economy. Let's get into it.
Look at this, I got 4 numbers across for you on this screen here. They are all second term lows for the given pollster. What are we talking about? AP North, 26 points below water. NBC, 22 points below water. Yahoo YouGov, 20 points below water. Quinnipiac, 19 points below water. So we're ranging from negative 19 points all the way to negative 26 points. You know, Kate, there's this question that folks keep asking, where is the floor for Donald Trump? And I'm not sure there is a floor, because if there is one, Donald Trump, at least in term number 2, has just fallen through it to another low level.
Well, President Donald Trump is once again setting new records for how low he can go when it comes to his own approval rating. Before I give you the details on that polling and what could be leading to it, Cenk, your 2 cents?
Yeah, so he's doing terrible on the economy, on tariffs, now bad on immigration, but there's a hidden issue that the reason why those numbers are so disastrous. We're going to talk about that a little bit later after Anna gives you the facts about this. And as she does, look for how they're lying about the jobs numbers because it's about to get much worse. Anna, tell us all about it.
Now, look, some of you might be thinking, well, look, Trump's approval rating was really bad in his first term. How could it potentially or possibly be worse in his second term? Is that really true? And the answer is yes. His approval rating, believe it or not, is actually worse this time around. And you're about to find out in this next clip.
22 points below water on average when you average all the pollsters from the last slide. That is actually lower. That is lower than he was at this point in term number one, when he was 17 points below water. So he's doing 5 points worse, 5 points worse. And he's doing way worse than Joe Biden was doing at this point in his term number one, when he was 13 points below water. So the bottom line is this: Donald Trump is setting new records for himself in term number two, setting new records for himself compared to where he was at this point in term number one. And he's doing worse than Joe Biden, which is, of course, the comparison that Donald Trump does not want to be, because we all know what happened to Joe Biden. His party lost the House in term number one, that in midterm elections. And of course, Joe Biden was not reelected to another term.
Now, if you're wondering, well, what's the cause of all this? Is it just the Epstein cover-up? I'm sure that plays a role in it. But if you ask Americans in the polling, they're actually pretty clear. They consistently rank the economy as their top issue. And so we just got a very troubling insight into how our economy is doing. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about here, it turns out the official count of payroll jobs at the end of 2025 was revised downward by more than 1 million last Wednesday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. By the way, I wanted to double check and make sure that was the case. I went to the actual BLS report, and it is true. Previously, the agency estimated that payroll jobs totaled 159,526,000 in December. Now it says that number is 158,497,000. So they revised the jobs numbers by roughly 1 million last year. So there's more. The federal government had previously claimed that the United States added over 400,000 jobs in the year 2025, meaning the net number of jobs that have been added to the economy. But last week, the government slashed that estimate. Now, the government is claiming that the US added just shy of 200,000 jobs last year. In other words, they revised their estimate downward by over 50%. And what's even more concerning here, Cenk, is that the US is only consistently adding jobs in one sector, and that's the healthcare sector. That's due to the fact that our population is aging. As you age, obviously, you need more healthcare. And so there is high demand for healthcare related jobs right now. And hiring has all but frozen throughout the rest of the economy. So that's what the real concern here is. Let's take a quick look at this graph that was put together by Indeed Hiring Lab. So the graph represents the number of jobs added to the US economy per month. Each of the blue vertical lines represents 1 month. So the colored horizontal lines portray the yearly average of jobs added per month. And as you can see, job growth has been slowing for quite some time now. It's not like this started with Trump, but it seems to have accelerated under Trump. So job growth has been slowing since 2022. But even up until 2024, the US was adding over 100,000 jobs per month. However, in 2025, the US added just 15,000 jobs per month on average. So unsurprisingly, a lot of Americans are feeling the economic burn right now, not only when it comes to the job market, but also in regard to the cost of things. Costs have not gone down. Inflation is still a problem. And that's a big issue when you consider the fact that wages have not kept up with inflation and people are finding it harder to find gainful employment. So curious what you think about all of this, Cenk.
Yeah, I have to confess that I forgot that Donald Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and that I should have not trusted any of the numbers since then. Because a couple months in a row, I was puzzled by surprisingly strong jobs numbers. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. All the headlines are about all the people being fired and that the AI layoffs have begun. And I'm like, but these numbers seem so much higher than I expected. Well, it turns out it's because they were basically lying. So now, when they adjust the numbers in the case of unemployment, it's not always a lie. It's oftentimes in the past was, okay, this is our initial estimate, and now we've looked at the actual numbers, and it's actually off. And it's usually off by a decent number, right? But 1 million is a giant number. And since Trump said, okay, anybody who tells the truth about the job numbers is gonna get fired, unsurprisingly, they're off by 1 million jobs. So that makes a lot more sense. And so now, economy's #1 issue, as Anna told you. That makes it, economy's almost always the #1 issue. So what's the hidden issue that I was talking about? The reason why his numbers are that low and they were not as low in his first one, they were bad as you saw, right? But not quite this low. I mean, underwater between 19 points, -19 and -27. I mean, just horrific numbers, right? It's because of the Epstein files issue. And why? Because that broke trust with his voters. Before, when his voters trusted him and he said, don't believe your lying eyes. Eggs are cheaper, not more expensive. Milk is cheaper, not more expensive. They'd be like, well, I feel like I'm paying 57 cents more, but if Trump says so, I guess I must be paying less, right? And that's the hardest one to fake, but even that would sometimes happen. And he would just lie to them and they would believe every lie. But once the trust was broken, then they started to wake up. Not all of them, but a lot of them, certainly the independents who voted for Trump. And they're going, no, wait a minute. A lot of my friends are getting fired. The economy's not great. The prices have gone up. The tariffs didn't work. And they're beginning to see more and more of what's true. And the more they get off the crack, and that's cable news, and they get online, there's still plenty of bad shows online, but there's also shows that are independent and even some that are right wing that are beginning to tell at least half the truth, right? And sometimes for the independents, all the truth. And so when they start seeing that, they're like, oh, this guy sucks. And Anna, you know what the #1 thing is. The American people are dying for someone to actually represent them and to care about them and to actually address their needs. And what is Trump doing? He's doing the same thing Biden did. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go start a war. And to be fair, Biden didn't start anywhere near as many wars, but I'm gonna go start a war in Venezuela and Iran and maybe Greenland and maybe Cuba and all these things. And all I care about is doing whatever. Oh, and I'm gonna pass all these laws that say that if you criticize Israel, you're an anti-Semite, we're gonna take away your rights. Yeah, but brother, I got you. The Israelis have bribed you and blackmailed you, whatever. I got it. But are you ever going to do anything for us? And the answer is almost always, hell no, no way. The donors get everything and we get bupkis. If the Democrats get back in charge, Anna, and then they just go back to the same exact thing and they go, oh yeah, we were gonna do it, but we can't do it, blah, 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 then everyone will despise them too.
No, I mean, at that point, it's over. I think that the country is on the precipice of something really scary unless we get real leadership. And I'm genuinely concerned that some of the gains that Democrats see right now as a result of the Trump administration reneging on its promises for Trump's base, I'm worried that they're gonna squander it and we're going to have the pendulum swing right back to JD Vance, who I think everyone should be concerned about, not because he has political views or policy prescriptions that I don't like, which I don't like, to be clear. It's because of the fact that he has referred to himself as a post-liberal Republican. What does that mean? That means he doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't think democracy has worked out so well for the American people. And right now, remember, he's this manufactured product of Peter Thiel's. And Peter Thiel, along with the rest of the Silicon Valley, tech barons, are obsessed with beating China when it comes to AI. Now, what would that require? They were pretty upfront and open about it during the World Economic Forum. They feel that China has an upper hand on AI specifically because of the fact that they don't have privacy rights. So little by little, you're gonna start seeing these efforts to chip away at our privacy rights in this quest to beat China when it comes to AI. So I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but it gives you a sense of what's to come if if political leaders don't take this moment seriously and respond to it appropriately. But I want to reset real quick and kind of give you another element to this story that I think is really important, because as more and more Americans are losing jobs, experiencing layoffs, and the labor market continues absolutely crushing them, it turns out that bank CEOs, oh yeah, they're doing real well. Now, how well? Turns out that the CEO of JP Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo each earned $40 million or more last year, a collective increase of more than 21% from the year before, 2024. Because the bankers weren't wealthy enough. Okay, so on average, ordinary Americans made just shy of 4% more last year than the previous year. Combined, those 6 banks made almost $160 billion in profits, not revenue, profits last year. Now let's remember the argument that we heard from the banks when it came to capping credit card rates. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Chase, made this argument that, if you cap interest rates for credit cards, it'll crush the poor credit card companies and ordinary people will no longer have access to credit cards. Then you take a good hard look at their profits. Really? Like our credit card interest rates need to be like 25, 30% in order for the companies to turn a profit? Not buying it at all. Now, per the Wall Street Journal, these banks were successful due to increased trading, a high number of mergers, something that the FTC under Biden was doing its best to prevent. Unfortunately, we don't have that under the Trump administration. And also mega corporations who need to borrow huge sums of money so they can build out artificial intelligence infrastructure. But at least one bank CEO is seeing troubled waters ahead. Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon said Tuesday he would expect a speed bump or recalibration or slowdown at some point this year, and flagged the US midterm elections and populist uncertainty potentially introducing new risks. Cenk, I'm not surprised that a bank CEO is worried about populist energy bringing new risks. What do you think?
Yeah, it's actually the best thing I read in a long time. When I saw populist uncertainty, I'm like, you got that right, mother effer. So what these bankers and the elites and the donor class is beginning to see is the walls have been breached. Our propaganda is not working anymore. Before we had establishment media, corporate media telling everybody the stock market's up. Everybody go stop complaining. Shut up. There's nothing wrong. Everything is great. Keep giving money to Israel and the defense contractors and big pharma and oil and etc. Now our liars in legacy media are not working as well because there's all this online media. And now there's a populist fervor to look out for the average American. Boo! Who's gonna look out for the average billionaire banker? Okay, so I love that they're nervous about it, but unfortunately, there is no scenario where they crash and we don't. And so the amount of power they have is grotesque. And I'll never not be mad at Obama for bailing them out and paying their bonuses. So of course, the underlying problem is money in politics. Guys, listen to what Anna told you. 6 banks made 160 billion in profits. I can't believe that. If 6 banks or 6 companies had made 16 billion in profits, that would be a spectacular result. Saying that that's not enough would be absurd. Not enough for what? What do you mean it's not enough? But they didn't make 16 billion, they made 160 billion. And they go, no, it's not enough, we want more. Because that's the stock market, infinite greed. It's literally built on infinite greed. You must get 15% return or higher every single quarter. You must maximize profit. And if you only got 159 billion and not 160, you did it wrong, you're fired. Abuse people more, guys, where did the 160 billion, again, this is not revenue, it's profit. Where did it come from? It came from you. They took all that money from you. They still have to take money to run their business. We're not against them running their business. We're not even against a massive profit. But the rest of it is corruption It's that they bought off our government so that there's no regulation of the banks. They could rob you blind. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was actually doing a great job and had gotten tens of billions of dollars back for the average American who was literally being cheated by the banks. Trump shut it down. And the Republicans are like, no way. One thing inside the government is actually helping the average American. Shut it down immediately. Those poor bankers, next year they got to make 260 billion in profits. So they've been robbing us from the very start. The minute we got money in politics, every single industry bought off all the politicians. Our politicians are the very worst people in the country. They are the ones with the least amount of morals. They will do anything for money, fame, and power. So in this case, they're like, oh, the bankers, you need to deregulate. And their last thing, Anna, is their excuse is so comical because every industry does the same thing. So why do you need hundreds of billions in profits for innovation? And the drug companies go, well, if we don't have hundreds of billions in profits, we'll be lazy and sit on the couch and not innovate and not come up with any drugs. Oh, come on. Oh, only tens of billions in profits is not enough motivation, right? But for the bankers, it's an extra level of comedy. Innovate what? And then when you ask them, what do you mean innovation? They're like, well, how else would we come up with complex derivatives and collateralized debt obligations? I'm like, wait, those are the things that crashed the economy in 2008. I don't want you to come up with those innovations. Those innovations are different, innovative ways of robbing all of us, gambling with our money, and leveraging it to the hilt so they can make the maximum amount of money. And if it crashes, they dump all the losses onto us and go, politicians, let's go waiters, let's go bailouts, bonuses, take it from the American people. I'm sick of it. All Americans are sick of it.
Yeah, I think the only innovation happening right now is among the American people in fantasizing of the different ways they're going to innovate using pitchforks in the near future. So bankers better wisen up in regard to their own greed because things are not looking good. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the controlled opposition that it appears Alex Jones has turned into, especially when it comes to battling the deep state. We'll be right back.
This is a robbery!
All right, let's go to YouTube members. Cola Babe says, I miss someone standing up for our rights that we proudly stand for and making clear what those are, especially the rights we seem to have sacrificed since 9/11. Well, couldn't agree with you more. Other than 2 congressmen, no one else seems to care at all. To be fair, from time to time, Rand Paul, Bernie Sanders, and amazingly now Nancy Mace, okay? But that's why, oh, look at that. A hatchet job article against Nancy Mace. What a coincidence. Okay, but our media does news. Sure they do. Joe S.NY says, I missed an entire hour because a friend called me and I felt bad interrupting him, LOL. Doesn't he know it's TYT time? Yeah, look, you know what, Joe? I'm right there with you, man. Friends don't let friends interrupt TYT. It's okay to talk to friends every once in a while. Anyway, much love, brother. I love that. Dana Albright says, the crazy libertarian Tom Massey and Ro Khanna are heroes. Yep, and look, guys, I would vote against Tom Massey 91% of the time because he votes with the Republicans 91% of the time. But is he an American hero for telling the truth about the Epstein files in Israel? Absolutely. Because look, you could say low bar. How many Democrats have crossed that bar? Bravely calling out Israel's abuses? But a handful? Okay, so show me courage, show me strength. I don't have to agree with everything. Partisan hypocrites everywhere says Khanna Massey or Massey Khanna 2028. With a gal says happy anniversary, TYT, grateful for all you do. With a gal, we're grateful for you. I see all those membership gifts and everything else you've done, really appreciate it. Mark Francis, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, none of this would be happening. Oh, I read that one already. Savage Lou on Twitch says, TYT is now officially too old for Leonardo DiCaprio, or is that 25? That's a great joke, Savage. Way to go.
It's okay. He's looking beat. We don't need him.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I think he's 50 now, but Glass House. All right, Jessica Ray, thank you for gifting a sub on Twitch. Happy Warrior Dragon, thank you for gifting. Oh wow, 8 subs on Twitch. You guys are awesome. AK Delaware Dragon writes in on TYT.com. Cenk, you mispronounced the name. It's banksters, not bankers. Good point. Little Mac McChee says, number one, there's zero reason for ICE to be armed as heavily as they are. Totally right. Number two, no other agency wears masks, including law enforcement that deals directly with gangs in the neighborhoods they live in. That's another great point. Number three, those stats he pulled out of his ass are BS. Name one ICE agent that has been stalked or attacked off duty. So great points all around. Pessimistic Progressive says, you guys should cover the bipartisan effort to repeal Section 230. The tech shows I listen to talk about it all the time, but not enough political shows do because maybe they think it's too nerdy. It attacks free speech on the internet and could destroy small communities like TYT. You're 100% right, Section 230 is critical. And notice he said it's a bipartisan attack because 95% of Democrats are so full of crap. While you're not looking, they tried to do net neutrality before and that didn't work and we beat that back. They're like, oh, we could do a backdoor version of it through Section 230. We'll work with the Republicans to destroy the internet so there's no more truth finding. Yeah, that's what I thought.
This is a robbery!
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Box, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. You're awesome. We appreciate you. Fish Cleaner wrote in on TYT.com. I've been listening to Cenk for 24 years. His show was taken off of XM for the Bill Press show. I quit XM over that decision. Oh my God, I love how awesome and loyal you are. And by the way, Bill Press, because he did that, he's a right winger, he's a grifter, he's a fashion. No, I'm just kidding, he's totally fine, it wasn't his fault. Okay.
You know what I just realized? More than a quarter of your life has been spent, oh my God, I guess me too, like doing this. Doesn't that blow your mind? A quarter of your life.
No, for me, it's a lot more than that. It's, it's nearly half my life, yeah.
No, I mean like overall life, like that you live like a full life.
Oh my God, from your mouth to God's ears, I hope it's a quarter of my life. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right, let's do it.
Man, life flies by. Make sure you savor it. Okay, let's get to our next story. You don't have to savor this, but it is what it is. We got to talk about it. Let's get into it.
It is a Saturday night, February 14th, 2026, and I got a Valentine's present for all of America and the world that wants truth and to bring down the globalist death cult. Tonight, Pam Bondi released the other 3 million total Epstein files. Man, people got excited. And it is major on redactions. It is a big move, but it's not the total, complete one the way they wrote it in the press release. And they continue to pull that crap. They have to release this.
What is going on with Alex Jones right now? You know, the man who built his entire career on fighting back against the deep state globalists. Now, all of a sudden, it seems like he's muddying the water and putting out false information in an effort to provide cover for the Trump administration as they engage in a cover-up on behalf of the deep state. Now, before I give you the goods, show you the receipts, Cenk, your 2 cents.
I only have 1 cent here. I think Alex Jones is a false flag operation, and I'm not joking. So after Anna gives you the facts, I'll explain who he's an operation for and why it's a false flag, all the things that he's done in the past. Really interesting. So go ahead, Anna.
The words controlled opposition, that's what I'm kind of leaning toward, but let me make the case and you all can judge for yourselves. So just last week, we had shared some of Alex Jones's claims on the PBD podcast. And he was basically, in my interpretation of it, running cover for the Trump administration and how they've bungled the release of the Epstein files. And that included a short, like a sort of defending of Attorney General Pam Bondi and how she performed during that disastrous House Judiciary hearing, House Judiciary Committee hearing. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is what I'm referring to.
Trump has been convinced that it will crash the economy if all these bankers and people, if this stuff comes out, and he thinks and justifies the means, it's too dangerous. I'm not defending this. I'm telling you what Trump's been told. And that's why I said he's told it'll crash the stock market. Bondi yesterday, it'll crash the stock market.
The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about.
They know it's a giant mess of BS and crap. And then the women that are the victims and the survivors, almost all of them were, got into it. And that's how it worked. And we're actually madams, out running these operations.
So to me, it appeared that he was defending Pam Bondi, especially in that disastrous moment during the hearing. But on top of that, he tried to blame the victims for what happened to them. So again, just the antithesis of what he had built his career on. And then over the weekend, Cenk, he posts this on X. Kaboom, Justin. AG Pam Bondi just unleashed the full Epstein files under the Transparency Act. All 3.5 million pages dropped, redactions justified only for victims, and high-profile names exposed with zero cover-ups for embarrassment or politics. Okay, so that's the relevant part of his post that you should know about. And the other relevant part about all of this is that it was a complete and utter lie. And I'm curious why he would put that statement out there when there were no receipts indicating that this happened, and the DOJ has continued its cover up. In fact, it has now been reported by the DOJ that they do not intend to release another file. They're not going to release anything else when it comes to the Epstein files. An investigation by Channel 4 News in the UK found that they've only released 2% of the Epstein files, by the way. And here's a little bit more from his breaking news video, which he posted alongside the X post that I just shared with you. Take a look.
This is a gigantic victory. If you thought the first half was devastating, my sources in Congress and the White House say it is even far worse, exponentially what you're about to see. Total Satanism, devil worship, genetic engineering. You saw Bondi on Thursday say, listen, this will bring down the stock market if we bring this out. I'm not defending her saying that. I said a year ago, the sources said Trump was told if you release this, it will literally bring down everything. But now they try to attach to him. He's doing the right thing. He ordered everything released. Massive pressure's been put on the president. I've put a lot of pressure on the White House, and a lot of you have as well. And Trump has never been involved. But by extension, he became part of the cover-up. And a lot of his top supporters, including myself, came out and said, you got to stop. You've got to reverse this now. He is, I'm told, royally pissed and is getting ready to axe a whole bunch of people in the administration that lied to him about this, not that are really involved in any meaningful way. I'm not defending the Republicans. We've always known 99% of us were Democrats. I kept asking why then is Trump helping cover it up? He's doing a self-inflicted wound.
Following that, he continued providing cover for Trump in particular by lying and saying that Trump is uber pissed. This is massive news for Team Humanity. Under Trump's orders, all Epstein files have been released. 3 million more files that, according to sources, are many times more shocking just hit the net. Now, his posts were hit with a community note, and I want to give you a little taste of the corrections here, because one community note said this is a complete lie. The DOJ simply released a statement with a list of names associated with Epstein and the files. There hasn't been a single new file release since the batch in late January 2026, which still includes heavy redactions. So the real question here, Cenk, is why is Alex Jones lying? What was the point of doing this?
Yeah, and I've got an awesome theory on that. But first, 2 random points. Drake Mayer was asked why he threw an interception in the Super Bowl, and he said, "Yeah, but the Dow's over 50,000." Okay, And I had a 9/11 post that went a little viral the other day, and then it got a community note on it. And then after a while, people were like, no, actually, Cenk is more right than the community note, and they took it off. So I don't know that a community note's ever been taken off before. Okay, so now on to Alex Jones. Yeah, and it's super curious how brazen the lie was, because in that tweet we just showed you, they've unleashed the full Epstein files. They most certainly did not. I mean, the minute it hit the news, I saw it, and I was like, oh, so we got screwed again. They're not going to release the files. So Alex Jones knows that this is what they tried to do was, well, let's just lie to them and then tell them, and they'll believe anything I say. Ha ha ha. Him and Trump, right? But it turns out, not anymore, brother, okay? So now, when you look at this next level propaganda, if I'm right about this, I mean, this is brilliant. Now, if you were running a bunch of conspiracies inside a country, what would you do? What would be a really smart thing to do is get a clown to do a conspiracy show and take real conspiracies and fake conspiracies, ludicrous conspiracies, and mix them all up. And then have the media go, it's binary. Either you believe conspiracy theories, all of them, or none of them. And if you believe any of the conspiracy theories, then you believe that people are lizard people, like Alex Jones says, and you're a lunatic. Or you believe everything the government says 100%. Oh, that's the trick. And I gotta say, I fell for it too. Because once they wrapped up all the conspiracies into one giant nonsensical mess, with Alex Jones, it was easy to dismiss all of them. But you go, wait a minute, they're no lizard people. But why did they redact the hell out of the 9/11 Commission? Why did they not release the Epstein files? No, there's a lot of things going on here where we need to ask a lot more questions. And if you notice with Alex Jones, he's always makes it partisan. So we don't want the country to unite. We want you to think the problem is for the guy on your left or the guy on your right. But whatever you do, don't look up. Don't look up at the donors. Don't look up at Israel. Don't look up at anything. So just fight amongst each other. And finally, I never understood how Alex Jones got hundreds of millions of dollars, because we're in the same business. Like, you can't make that kind of money from ads. You can't make that kind of money from almost anything. And I know how Charlie Kirk got it. He got $540 million in contributions. And then all of a sudden he didn't say the things that people wanted, and we know the rest of the story, right? So where did Alex get those hundreds of millions of dollars? So he's giving away the game here and my guess is that if any of this is right, and if he complains about this being a conspiracy theory, that'll be perfect, chef's kiss, right? Okay, but if I'm right, his handlers came to him and said, no, Alex, this is when we need you. Go and lie to them and tell. And by the way, none of your conspiracy should. Every once in a while, throw in Israel, etc. In the old days, now no talk of Israel, none of that. Okay, distract them and make it partisan again, and tell them all the files have been released. Okay, you're gonna pay all my bills, and I got a lot of bills. Okay, I gotta do it. What happened, Alex? What happened? Sellout bitch.
All right, the revolution is next. Are you interviewing someone interesting, Cenk?
Yeah, person running against Ritchie Torres that confronted him. So Ritchie Torres, of course, is owned by Israel. So ought to be interesting. We'll be right back with that. All right, welcome to the revolution. We just finished up the Young Turks. Got a lot of different shows at TYT. I'm gonna read some of your comments in a bonus episode after an interview that we do here, because I wanted to explain a couple things to you guys. One of you asked, what would you have said if you were AOC about that Taiwan question? And the minute I saw the story, I immediately thought, I gotta have an answer right now, because if I wait and I think it through, that's not fair to AOC. And I'll tell you the answer I came up with at that time, right? Among other things. But I'm gonna do a couple of comments here left over from the show before we get to the interview, because I think that I'm interested in them. First, a super chat. Solo Rick said, "Can you support TYT? Match me. If we all do this, it would be a huge win for this awesome channel. Donating is the best way to change the atmosphere because financial support is huge. Match me, please." Now, I'm reading that because that's beautiful of you, and sure, if other people do it, that's amazing. But overall, look, guys, I love that we've got this can-do attitude together. That we're this, we're this show and this network trying to make a difference. And everybody's chipping in, and we don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars that Alex Jones and Charlie Kirk and Daily Wire and Vice and all these guys had. We just don't have it, right? And do we struggle on a day-to-day basis? Yeah, betcha, as Sarah Palin used to say. And so, because we're real. So when you're real, the money doesn't fall out of the sky. And so, thank you for everyone who helped to build this. I love you guys. And then, Original Props just said Cenk is on point. Just wanted to read that because it's nice. Thank you, that's a YouTube member. And Rage Rock for now gifted 5 memberships. You guys are awesome and love you guys. More of the comments in the bonus episode I'll do for the members. All right, now we're gonna interview Jose Vega. He's running in New York 15 against Ritchie Torres. And there's a lot of interesting things about this race. But first, Jose, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Slightly nervous to be on here. I grew up watching you, so it's a little surreal. I'm 27 years old now. I've detoured away from your show, and now you're bringing me back with some of the stuff you've been saying lately. So it's good to be here.
All right, God bless, brother. So maybe we'll get into some of our differences. And you're not running as a Democrat, so that's kind of interesting.
No, I am actually.
Oh, you are.
In the primary. I'm in the yeah. We're doing the primary and the general election. We're doing both Democrat primary and independent.
Oh, interesting. And New York's so different, it's hard to keep up with all those different rules in New York. But okay, so first off, for the folks who don't know, who's Ritchie Torres?
Ritchie Torres is an AIPAC bot tool, basically, just to put it very bluntly. He made his mark by being the youngest city council member in New York City, elected at the age of 23. He was seen as a young, up and coming progressive guy. And that is when, of course, he was bought. Suddenly he was being groomed by the Israeli lobby in 2015. He was being flown out to Israel. And then he won his congressional race in 2020. He was a very vocal supporter of Israel then. He is now the congressman of what is the poorest congressional district in the entire country. And so as a result, though, he doesn't do anything for the people here because it's of the state that it has been in for 50 years and the 6 years that he's been in Congress for. And instead, he serves the interest of a place that calls itself a country, that is currently committing mass murder.
That sounds about right. Okay, so there's other Democrats in the race. And in fact, we interviewed one of them. So Jose, why you instead of them?
Well, good question. I think because one of the reasons I actually started running, I'm 27 years old now, and I'm looking at this Epstein stuff, and I realized that a lot of this stuff was happening 15, 20, 25 years ago or so, and I'm realizing I was born basically in a post 9/11 world. I was 2 years old when 9/11 actually happened, and now I'm seeing that all of this stuff is unfurling, and basically I'm looking at the trajectory of what my life was supposed to be in those files. But as opposed to people like Michael Blake, I got in the habit of calling him Michael Fake. I never attended AIPAC conferences, nor was I calling myself the most pro-Israeli mayoral candidate as late as May of 2025, and then suddenly changed my mind because it became politically convenient. 10 days after October 7th happened, I attended an event where Rachel Maddow was speaking at a synagogue with my friend Russell Dobular of Do Dissidents, and I had stood up and I said, there's an ethnic ethnic cleansing that's about to happen, that is happening in Gaza, and you and the rest of the media are going to lie about it. That was October 17th, 2023. Okay, and not only that, but I have been challenging power for a very long time now. I have gone after people like Kamala Harris and even people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, as well as Mike Pompeo, State Department tools like Matthew Pottinger. And the biggest one was when I went after the executive editors of the New York Times. I went after the LA Times, Reuters. They were all together in a panel at the Columbia School of Journalism. And I decided to call them out on the fact that they weren't reporting on what Seymour Hersh was reporting on, which was the fact that we blew up a Nord Stream pipeline. And that embarrassed them so much because it was translated into like 9-10 different languages. It had over hundreds of millions of views, and it was the thing that they were ignoring was really their downfall. So, not only calling them out, and of course, holding power accountable, which is what I know people are very hungry for right now. I don't care whether you have a D or an R next to your name. I'm going to tell the truth, and I don't care about political correctness, but it's also the ideas that actually matter, that matter more. I've been associated with the Schiller Institute and yes, the LaRouche organization for over 10 years now. Since I was about 15 years old, I've been associated with them. And the ideas are that I have gained from them is that every individual is created in the living image of a creator. And as a result, they deserve dignity, not poverty. And I believe that the Bronx should become a science center. I have had the pleasure of working with people like Daniela Scalise or Dr. Anna Maria McGowan, who was a NASA scientist who I brought around to different schools in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Manhattan, when I was in my late teens, and to inspire young people that they could be on the forefront of science and ingenuity. And that could be them, as opposed to what they are right now doomed and destined to because of lawmakers like Ritchie Torres and Hakeem Jeffries of destitution and poverty, low literacy rates. I want to do a crash program to fix all of it. I want to do a space civilian construction corps, put the young men and women of the Bronx who are between the ages of 18 to 30 years old, to give them literacy, to give them engineering skills, to teach them how to be welders, to teach them to be city builders, so that by the time they graduate, they can be NASA STEM engineers. That's how advanced they have to be. And that is the orientation that I will be bringing to the Congress that nobody else has, because I don't treat my voters like they're dumb or with discontempt saying I'm gonna just make things cheaper for them. I will do that, but we're gonna make sure that the people who are born after we are long gone have much better lives than we ever could have dreamed of.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you about a bunch of interesting things like your issue with AOC, the Lyndon LaRouche stuff, maybe your disagreements with me, but first, I want to show a video of you confronting Ritchie Torres. But even before we do that, I have to note, you said that Rachel Maddow would, shill for Israel and not call it what it is and a genocide. But I mean, to be fair to Rachel Maddow, she's, oh no, right, she did all of that. Okay, okay, but she's gonna speak up any second now. Any second. I mean, was it 25 million a year or whatever she's getting? Okay, anyways. So this is Jose confronting Ritchie Torres in a diner.
Let me tell you something, what is it about you and endless war? You just seem to love war, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Gaza, the thousands of dead Palestinian children that you funded. Don't you think that that's crazy? You are responsible for the death of thousands of Palestinian children, thousands of Ukrainian children. You love funding war. You love funding genocide. Listen, the crowd prince of genocide is here, thinking he can just get away by sitting here and eating comfortably while there are thousands of Palestinian children who have to suffer because of the decisions of this guy.
Look, I have mixed feelings about that, Jose, because then on the left, the right, politicians, media, nobody can get a meal because somebody's gonna be agitated about something and we're all yelling at each other and it's a mess. On the other hand, we have no access to these politicians. We can't meet with them unless we bring at least a $5,000 check. And since they're so corrupt and since they're the worst of us, and especially on this, where he's like, yeah, I know they're committing a genocide and they've killed 20,000 children, but my check cleared, and it was a big one, right? So I gotta say, hats off on that. So was that security, and what happened after what we saw on tape there?
Well, it basically, first of all, just to your point, I mean, if Ritchie Torres was holding town halls even once a year, I wouldn't think about confronting him at a diner, right? And this is true for all the politicians I have confronted. Usually they hold town halls, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. When I first confronted her in 2022, that was at a town hall. The last time Ritchie Torres held a town hall was February of 2023, at least that I knew of. And I was there confronting him on his complicity in being a paid tool of Israel. I told him there, I understand that you're a political tool for the lobby of Israel in February of 2023. That was the last time he actually held a town hall. Now, what you saw there was me confronting him at a diner, and then he decided to just run away as opposed to answer for anything that I had actually brought up. And instead of actually directly, saying anything about it or responding to my claims, what he has done is he has used his tools, his Epstein class supporters to smear me. So what happened after that clip was, I just went home, I uploaded it, it went viral, and you played it here. But ever since then, the congressman and the people in the media that prop him up have been putting out direct attacks on me, calling me an anti-Semite for saying that Ritchie Torres is owned by Zionists. Now, that is true, but it's not the whole truth. It's what I call the Epstein class. The Jerusalem Post has put out a giant hit piece and an expose on me. Canary Mission just 2 days ago has decided to put out a hit piece on me as well.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I saw Anna Kasparian's her video talking about Canary Mission, how it's foreign interference, which is exactly what's going on here in my race, and she's right. Democrats were crying Russia, Russia, Russia for 4 years, but when we see clear, direct evidence of foreign election interference, not just through AIPAC, but stuff like Canary Mission and other things, and the Jerusalem Post clearly writing smear pieces that are lies on me, what else am I supposed to think other than foreign election interference? So that's what has happened since that video has been published. They are trying to smear me, lie about me, and ruin my reputation. They try to hack into my devices every day. I get 3 different authentication code requests every hour. I get emails from my various accounts saying, hey, did you forget your password? Here's the password reset thing. They are trying everything they can to surveil me, hack into what I'm doing, and they're doing this specifically because of what I did there by embarrassing Ritchie Torres and showing to the world what a coward he is and how easy they fall apart, which is why he doesn't do town halls that are publicly announced anymore. No, he has to set up, like today, he did something with Hakeem Jeffries, where Hakeem Jeffries was endorsing him in the Bronx, and it wasn't publicly announced. It was just something for Democrat insiders to attend.
Yeah, that's so surprising that Hakeem Jeffries would back him. Okay, so, and welcome to the club, brother. So I always assume the Israelis are following everything I do based on a great number of pieces of evidence. And every once in a while, I'll wave to the camera and be like, hi, Mossad, at home. And what Mossad has found out so far about me is, God, that is the dullest guy in the world off air. Right? We just can't get anything on this guy. All right, anyways, so look, going after Pelosi, Jeffries, Torres, that all makes sense. They're all bought, not just by Israel, but by big pharma, military-industrial complex, and on and on and on, right? So how about Pelosi? I'm sorry, AOC, what was your issue with her?
I can understand why you mix them up, but basically my relationship with AOC is a complicated one. I was originally a Bernie Sanders supporter. The first time I could vote was in 2016. And I remember talking with my high school teacher about Bernie Sanders and being really excited about him. And when he lost the primary election and refused to call out the fact that Hillary Clinton was conspiring with the DNC, I was very upset. But AOC to me seemed to be at the time, as she was for many, a breath of fresh air. I honestly believed her. I saw her on Glenn Greenwald's show, talking about Edward Snowden. And that was something to me at the point, I think I was 19, 20 years old or so. And in fact, I wrote an email to her campaign after she won because I was living in a basement apartment in the Bronx at the time where the ceiling had caved in because sewage water had pooled in the top. And I reached out to her asking if she would be willing to shed some light on this, because it was happening in the Bronx. Now, she didn't write back, and I understand. You're busy. You just did something historic. That was totally okay. But the blinders started coming off when she said she was going to withhold her vote, to Nancy Pelosi, unless she would bring Medicare for all to the floor, that she and the squad would hold their ground, and they didn't. Now, for me, I'm a big foreign policy guy too, and the war in Ukraine had broken out, and I can understand why you may want to support, giving money to Ukraine, but I would think that AOC would understand the CIA's role in the sort of meddling and starting of that war. And that to me was the big indicator that she is not understanding how she is being played by the Congress. And at this point, she has been completely co-opted. And so I intervened on her in October of 2022, but that was also more so calling her what I thought was a sellout. And I think I was right. I look at the DNC convention, going out on that stage saying that the Harris campaign was working tirelessly around the clock for a ceasefire, which we later found out just wasn't true. The Biden administration was putting no pressure on the Israelis to put a ceasefire, and just not withholding her endorsement unless there was some kind of embargo put in place. And then only after talking about it, after Trump has won, after the Republicans took back the House and the Senate to say, I privately excoriated President Biden, telling him that he was wrong, and she's sitting there next to Bernie Sanders saying the same thing. I think the thing about AOC and why I criticize her the most, well, I don't criticize her the most, I think why she gets the most criticism is because she is, one of the loudest voices that progressives have in the Congress. And there's a lot of responsibility with that. And if it's constantly kowtowing, to the establishment and not actually challenging power in a meaningful way, then what good is it if you're just paying lip service, but you're not actually doing actions that will raise the tension in people's minds to say, what? Hey, maybe I won't vote for Harris unless she does do some kind of embargo or does say she can do a ceasefire. Instead, just putting your full-throated endorsement in it because Trump is the worst option is not good enough anymore. We have to demand better of our leaders.
Yeah, so I get it. And so like she's supposed to represent us more than Ritchie Torres is, right? We didn't have any expectations on Ritchie Torres. We had some expectations on AOC. And I get what AOC is saying. I'm trying to balance the pressures of the establishment with our voters. But ultimately I agree with you. Yeah, but you're not supposed to make that balance. You were actually supposed to be like a ferocious fighter for us because everyone else is taking in the interests of the establishment plenty. We don't need it, right? So okay, so that I get that. Now I'm gonna ask, a little worried, what your issue with me was. Hold, before you do, I'm gonna guess blind that you used to watch Jimmy Dore.
I still do. I like Jimmy a lot.
Okay,
but
how
that's
good am
not
I?
my problem.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but that's not my problem with you. I watch people who have views that diverge from one another all the time.
God bless.
My issue with you was because you actually called me out after I had called out AOC. I think you had said something mean about me going after AOC, saying, this isn't right or something like that. And I wasn't offended or anything, but I was just like, damn, and that's what it was. And the reason that you've been winning me back is because I've been seeing you sort of like you've been making strides to reach out to the other side, which I don't really believe there's another side. But you're having conversations, whether it's people like Alex Jones or other people saying, what, let's just decide to talk to people who we think might have different views. what I've been able to see from that, honestly, has just been that actually there is no such thing as a different side. It's just that people do want the same thing. They have different ideas of how to get it, but we've all been screwed by the same system, and so to be able to have the sort of courage and bravery to say, you know what, I am going to go talk to somebody who disagrees with me, or I am going to have the courage to go and talk to somebody who doesn't think the same way I do. I respect that a lot, like a lot. And that's part of the reason why I've started watching your show again. I saw Anna's analysis of Canary Mission a month ago when it happened. That's why I knew when they were hitting me, I was like, oh, well, great. Yeah, foreign interference. Here's another example of it too.
Yeah.
And so, that's sort of my, I guess, yeah, that's it doesn't mean much to me anymore because here we are now.
Yeah, I remember now because we've covered so many stories, and actually the last interview I did on Friday, a reverend was like, "Oh, you said amazing things about me 10 years ago," and I was like, "Oh, yes, okay." But in your case, I remember now you were interrupting her town hall, and I thought you were being unfair about Ukraine at that point. That she was not the primary person responsible for Ukraine, et cetera. But we talked about that a minute ago. In fact, now I read something about Leviathan, which is the giant gas field in Israel, and how they're trying to get it over to Europe. And I thought, wait, are we sure we bombed that streamline? Or was it our special ally? Because they're gonna need the gas from somewhere. Okay, so but anyways, that's a whole different topic. But look, I like that attitude, which is, yeah, okay, we disagreed about that. So what, right? Let's move on. Let's figure out what we can do together. And yeah, the sides are both true and an illusion at the same time. The number one thing that people in power want you to do is to fight each other, right? And so, for God's sake, look up, look up. So now, along those lines, though, you were with the Lyndon LaRouche folks. You mentioned it earlier. Not a hit job or anything. I'm just genuinely curious. Like, what was that about? Why did you go in that direction? What do you think about it these days?
Oh, well, I'm still very much associated with the LaRouche organization, and I work with the Schiller Institute, which is a sister organization, which is, hosted and held up by Helga Zepp-LaRouche. And she has been doing tremendous work internationally, and it's good. Every Friday she hosts what's called the International Peace Coalition calls. And she's had on people like Dr. Naledi Pandor. Dr. Naledi Pandor brought the case to the International Court of Justice against Israel. Not only that, she's been having former diplomats on and people who are around circles of government. She's had on Palestinian ambassador to Denmark on. I mean, the work that we've been doing on this sort of playing field of like, we can actually work with other countries through mutual development as opposed to treating every country like an enemy was what was attractive to me in 2014, 15. That was about the time I was joining. I was a high schooler. And you Google Lyndon LaRouche, right? I mean, I had Google back then too. And it was like cult leader, they were cult, this, that, and the other. And the thing that they got mocked for, big time controversially, was because Lyndon LaRouche had the audacity to say that the British Crown and its debauchery and its degeneracy was one of the leading causes that was bleeding into its foreign policy, that was leading to a lot of death and destruction. And while back then he was laughed at it, you look at what's coming out of the Epstein files now. Okay, and then you start realizing, wait a minute, this guy was actually on to something. And here's something for you, Cenk. I know you've been questioning a lot of the 9/11 narrative. Why was it that Lyndon LaRouche was on the radio as it happened? And the first thing he said when he first got word, he said, they're gonna blame Osama bin Laden. Don't let them get away with that lie. And when I found that out, I was like, well, how the fuck how the heck did this guy know, that had happened? And I was just like completely, blown away by that. And but the real reason why I decided, to call myself a LaRouche member, bear the whips and scorns of embarrassment, was because he was right. And he told the truth, which is that we can treat every human being with dignity, and that we should have a government and a policy that that reflects, development of the mind, of reason, of creativity, because the greatest resource in any economy is the mind. In other words, your ability to come up with creative solutions and ideas that can actually better the world, make the world a better place. And that's not through, investing in military industrial weapons, bombs. No, it's through investing in better education, better schools, teaching people 3-4 languages, getting them to do, foreign exchange student studies, and also development in infrastructure too, and not only that, he was a real threat to power. I honestly believe that if people took a second, to revisit this stuff, especially in the light of the Epstein stuff, they would ask themselves, why was Henry Kissinger, Lyndon LaRouche's #1 biggest enemy? Henry Kissinger was writing letters personally to the FBI saying, we need to do something about this guy. George H. Bush, same thing. The whole LaRouche thing, I think, is one of the greatest miscarriages of justice. And that was something former Attorney General Ramsey Clark had said. And so, you know what? I'm sticking to my principles of what I know is true. This guy was mistreated and was totally slandered at a time when there was no internet. And that reputation stuck unjustly and unfairly. And so I would say, in the way people are starting to revisit what they thought about Noam Chomsky, they should revisit what they thought and think about Lyndon LaRouche and read what he actually had to say, as opposed to what other people said he said.
Yeah, well, I'm rethinking everything. So I remember thinking Lyndon LaRouche was absolutely crazy. And I don't remember any of the specifics. I'm not saying he's not crazy. I'm not saying anything about him, okay? Because I got to go back and look to see what he said. But I did notice that his name was on a list. Some Israeli leader said, oh yeah, we knocked out anyone who was against us. Pat Buchanan, Lyndon LaRouche, and named a bunch of people. And I was like, uh-oh. Do I have to go back and read Lyndon LaRouche to see if he was right or not? So it did make me question. I'm not vouching. I have no idea, but I'll go back and look, because honestly, I thought our government lied to us. I don't know if you pressed me on a percentage. Maybe I would have said 25% of the time. Now I'm beginning to think it's 75% of the time. Or even if it's just 25%, it's like the 25% that's the most important stuff. Who's actually running the country, all these giant events that have happened that are outrageous. So who knows? So am I gonna judge you for that? No, I'm past it. Okay.
Oh, and I've bared the whips and scorns, like I said. Look, listen, it's the first thing when people would bring me on a podcast. It's like, well, you did this thing, but also, what's this LaRouche thing, man? And it's one thing, and it's another reason why people should know I'm not going to sell them out. You think about it, right?
Hold on, Jose. Hold on.
Yeah,
because one of our members asked about that. So Kara's helping me out. She's our community director, getting your questions to me. CB1 asked, how much pushback are you getting from the DNC? And then Spider-Man Dragon asked about whether you'll investigate Trump and stuff. But I think the essence of these questions are basically, is the DNC pushing back against you, and how do we know you'll stay true if you go into Congress?
Well, to the first question, yes, they are. And you see that because Ritchie Torres has been securing endorsements. Like, for example, he got endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus PAC. He got endorsed by Hakeem Jeffries, who's a Democrat minority leader. I mean, that right there goes to show you that the DNC, of course, is going to, fight tooth and nail to prevent me from probably even getting on the ballot. We have to collect signatures like every other Democratic candidate does, but we're pretty confident that we may be able to get through that. But despite that, of course, he's also appearing with local Democratic officials. The Bronx Borough president, who recently approved a casino to be built here in the poorest congressional district in the country. Taking photo ops. Having him speak at her recent re-election re-inauguration ceremony. He's doing a tour with all the city council members of of the borough as well. Sort of doing a show of force that, hey, the local establishment wants me here. There's a reason the local establishment, has had the power it has had for 50 years, and the Bronx looked the way it does. Okay, you're not going to see me get any endorsement, certainly not from Hakeem or Chuck Schumer. Now, to the second question, how do we know you're not going to sell us out? You understand that, at any point, I could have made a personal decision where I said, look, listen, like this LaRouche thing is dragging me, it's slowing me down, people can't get past it, whatever. Maybe I should just drop it, for the sake of going further in my political career. I have never at one point believed that to be possible or true. At the moment you start making concessions like that on the basis of making decisions on something that can advance you politically or advance your fame further, you have already sold your soul. And I refuse to do that. I know that Lyndon LaRouche was mistreated, and I know that to be true. And I'm not asking you to believe that or vouch for that. I'm asking for you to just investigate it, and that's all I'll say on that. But that's my proof. I try to do things on principle of what I think is right, and I make mistakes like anybody else, but I promise you I will always lead by a principle that I will go by what I believe to be true and what I know to be true as well. And you can see that also, I've confronted people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Can you think about it, right? I could be saying things like, actually, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I was wrong, and please endorse me. Bernie Sanders, please endorse me. I'm sure that would mean a lot in my race right now. But I'm not gonna do that because I'm just standing on what I know to be true. And the thing I believe the most is that the voters in the Bronx who have given up on voting need a reason to believe again. And that's very difficult to do right now, because I talk to a lot of people who haven't voted in decades, and they say, well, why are you any different? And I say, because I'm not gonna lie to you. And they say, oh yeah, you're just like every other politician who says that too. And I say, no. You and I agree, yeah, Trump is a problem, sure. But what about Hakeem Jeffries? What about Chuck Schumer? What about any of these other Democrats? They haven't done anything for us in the Bronx. It's time to have somebody who won't treat you with contempt.
Yeah, so I got a last couple of questions here, and I'm not endorsing anybody in the race, and I'd have to do more research, etc. But I will give you this, Jose. You would be an RPG inside of Congress. Yeah. Okay, and it would be kind of interesting to watch. And I'm positive you're not hiding your real opinions. There's no question about that. Which, by the way, it's like already puts you above 90%, 98% of politicians. So his website, by the way, is votevega.nyc. We'll have the link down below, votevega.nyc. All right, so two are fun, and then the last one serious. I like to ask this of everyone. I've added one to my usual favorite. So one is, what's your favorite TV show that you're watching now?
Oh my God. I don't know if I've had time to even watch TV shows right now.
It's okay, give me the last one.
The last one I watched was Severance. That one was a lot of fun.
Okay, good. Severance is solid, makes you think. And in high school, what extracurricular activities did you do? Sports, band, key club?
Oh, this is a great question, because I was part of a chorus, and I was also doing robotics at the time too, which kind of blended my love for both. But also I was a camp counselor at a summer program that was hosted by the Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture. And I had also attended as a student and a camp counselor throughout my entire high school career, pretty much. Getting a deeper understanding of the classics, getting a deeper understanding of poetry and why it's so important to have beautiful culture, especially in the minds of a young person. You have to teach them what it means to be a human being. And I think great poetry, Shakespeare and Edgar Poe, it's the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country today. And Edgar Poe was definitely an American patriot. A lot of people don't know that, but I do a thing on my YouTube channel every Friday on that. But yeah, and that's what I did pretty much my entire 4 years in high school, was reading poetry, learning how to sing classical music. I'm a baritone, and doing robotics too, and doing science as well. Like astronomy, Johannes Kepler, and yeah.
I mean, if I had seen that back then, my guess would have been that you would design singing robots. Man, I would have been wrong about that one. Okay, but I get it. You're interested in exploring ideas. And I appreciate that. All right, last thing serious, which is what we ask everybody on this show, which is, if you could change one thing to get our government back, what would it be?
It has to be mentality, mindset, and an appreciation for history. I mentioned that it's the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country. And I think that it's important that people look at the best aspects of our history. I understand that American history is very, very, mixed, and oftentimes it's important that we look at our, like for example, Gouverneur Morris. Gouverneur Morris is a founding father from the Bronx. A lot of people don't know that, yet he wrote the words, "We the people of the United States." He wrote the preamble, and he stood up at the Constitutional Convention and he denounced slavery. But American history is not just what happened on, 250 years ago. It's people like Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., two people who have quoted, our founding fathers and what we did on the 4th of July of 1776, because they were the continuance of that process of making that more perfect union. And I would say that I would change the minds of American citizens to think independently and to think about declaring their independence this year. Because this year we have to declare our independence from the Epstein class, tap into what makes America, America, which is that a process of we may not agree on the way to get there, but we want a more perfect union. And that is something that we try to do here all the time. I have high school interns now that we read the Declaration of Independence and we ask questions like, well, that document is your document, right? Are all men created equal? Well, maybe you may not have believed that in 1776, but you know what? It's your document now, and you better use it and make something with it and make a revolution with it, because a revolution is a state of mind. It's not a time, place, or specific period. It's what you believe, it's what you think, and it's what you're willing to act on. That's what makes a revolution possible. That's what I think is embedded in the Declaration of Independence. And so I would just say that if more people knew that, we would not have the government that we would have, and I would be able to design singing robots instead of running for Congress.
Okay, I like it. And you gave me an idea there. On the 250th anniversary, it would be great if America declared its independence from Israel. That would be phenomenal. All right, Jose Vega, everybody, he's running in New York 15. His website is votevega.nyc. And as you can tell, the brother's got some ideas and he's not shy about sharing them. So Jose, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, like I said, I'm gonna do a quick bonus episode for the members. So if you're not a member, hit the join button below on YouTube or wherever you're watching this, tyt.com/join. Also gets the job done. I'll see you in a second if you're a member.